Welcome, vegans. I hope that everyone is vegan here because I don't like carnies. So I want to play the theme song though. Anyway,
it's so hard to not abuse animals.
Carnies can fuck themselves. Go fuck themselves.
This is a show for vegans. This is a show for vegans. This is a show for
vegans! I'm so happy that we're finally able to bring everything together. You know, this has been a little while coming. I'm going to bring the guys on right away because I think you know who everybody is. This is Grumpy Vegan Grandad, and this is Carson Hughes, Reasonable Vegan. And just now it looks like I put you on bottom on purpose, Carson, but I would like to let everyone know that Carson wanted to be on the bottom tile.
He didn't say that at all, Sky.
I don't want to make it look like, you know,
he didn't say that.
You know, when they do the presidential debates in the United States, at least, they want to make it so that the camera is so they both look the same height and all that stuff.
Yeah, Putin. Yeah.
Putin does that? Well, yeah.
Yeah,
I guess,
Putin's only a short guy, isn't he? Yeah.
Well, George W. Bush was shorter than, it doesn't matter. That's a whole other thing. So to talk about this a little bit, to bring everyone up to speed, Dan and I did a reaction video to some of Carson's videos. Carson took issue with some of those, and immediately, just to clear the air, and maybe this will be a whole clearing the air session, I'm not really sure. We'll see where it goes, but to immediately clear the air, I would like to formally and publicly apologize to Carson for anything that I, like, because I know we were making a reaction video, we were trying to be educational, but also entertaining, and you know, a little name calling, a little bit of teasing, and I want to apologize if I caused any mental duress or distress whatsoever. It was I'm not going to say it wasn't my intention because when you're doing live stuff, you know, you sometimes say things, and I rewatched it and I kind of regretted some of the mean-spirited nature of it. So I would like to immediately apologize about that, and with an open heart and truthfully. Oh
yeah, no worries.
And I personally don't really care. I just everything I said I meant. I'm
not saying I didn't mean it. I'm saying that okay.
I'm only joking. My character, Grumpy Vegan Grandad, he says what he says what he means, and he means what he says. And I think on this platform of YouTube, we've got to create drama. We've got to say things, and we got to challenge each other, and only by challenging each other do we get into this what we're in now, is where we can thrash it out and talk it out. And it's only about doing that we can do that. But it's no use all sitting and being nice to each other and kissing each other's ass. It's not what it's all about. It's all about getting to the same goal between us all, I think. And yeah.
Yeah, same goal, or accepting slight differences. But yeah, definitely.
Well, all right. So immediately I'd like to just kind of open it up and also ask, so the thing that stuck out about your post about your immediate response was that Dan and I were somehow being dishonest, Carson. So I'd like to just start out with that, because I don't feel like Dan and I were being dishonest in any way. So maybe we can start there if that'd be okay with you.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's kind of complicated to point out the details of being dishonest without like us reviewing the video. But essentially, each time you guys would break down an idea of mine, it almost felt like a straw man. It felt like you would watch me talk, but then when you talked about it, it would be as if you were creating a new story. But I think what might be easier is to just discuss each of the topics. I didn't specifically make a note on each element I thought was dishonest, and I think we can just find out here.
Okay, so dishonesty in this estimation is the idea that we were somehow misrepresenting your ideas when we reacted to them. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, so it was a reaction video, to be fair. Please, reaction video, like a Roland Barthes type of thing, where the author of any artifact is dead, and the ownership goes to the viewer. So I would like to say that I don't feel like we were being dishonest we were reacting to a video, but that's neither here nor there, I suppose.
Yeah. I guess the honesty element would be any point that you guys would make a claim about me that I'm claiming when I haven't claimed it. I would say it happened at least a dozen times, but it's all right. We don't need to go over that. If I do a reaction video to it, which I'll likely do, even though we're doing this, I'll point out the elements of where I thought it was dishonesty. But it's all right. I don't think that there was any specific. Well, I don't know if there was ill intent. I don't know. We'll see. But let's just go over each of the topics.
Sure,
So you guys covered 5 of my videos. And actually, well, one video that was Dan's video, including me. But so within that, Dan said Meatless Mondays as an answer, as something vegans push, is a big no-no. And so I think it's first we need to decide. I'm curious what definition we land. Do you both land on the vegan definition that is the current vegan society created in 1988? The definition that involves practicable and possible?
No. To me, veganism is a bit more old school than that, and I like no animal use. 3 words is very easy for me. No animal use, and you can replace the word exploitation. Exploitation is just a synonym of use. I am a 100% abolitionist. I'm an extremist in that. I would call myself a Tom Regan vegan, because I am an extremist all the time about veganism.
Okay.
I've evolved, Carson,
Yeah.
over the years. Okay. Come talk to me 7 years ago when I first became vegan, and I would maybe have agreed with a lot of what you said. But as I've evolved and seen more and investigated more and looked at evidence more, I am now totally for animal rights. I do not believe that we should be violating animal rights in any single way whatsoever. But we live in a non-vegan world. We live in a world where we've got to do things that do cause harm. We can't avoid that. We cause harm to humans as well as animals. They're unavoidable. So I sit on that side of we just do not need to exploit animals wherever it's possible and practicable.
Mm-hmm. Okay, gotcha.
Well, what about you, Carson? We've all shown, you know, you show me yours now.
Yeah. I for myself, I would say it seems like you guys said about the same thing, and I agree. I don't think humans should have any contact with animals. I don't think we should have pets. I don't think humans should come in contact whatsoever. It's kind of complicated since we have such a focus on not exploiting animals, that in a world where that were to come true, would we start thinking about if we would afford them positive rights, like strolling through the jungle and finding an animal that broke a leg and then having a vet help it? I don't know. But as far as how I view veganism, it's I view it as we should not have any contact with animals.
Sure.
I mean, you've just said something. Sorry to interrupt. You just said something there, and you've just called an animal it, right?
Yes.
And an animal is not a rock. An animal is not a table.
Yeah.
The language that you use is speciesist language in my head. I slip up lots of times. I call animals it. I even call my friend's babies it sometimes. What is it? Is it a boy? Is it a girl?
In Carson's defense, he was talking about a hypothetical animal. He wasn't talking about an animal that's like...
No, of course. But I have...
In Dan's defense, I do call animals it. I don't have any... semantics do not matter to me. I care about animals. I care about not harming them, and the fact that I grew up learning how to use language the way I did. There's nothing wrong with critiquing it. I critique language all the time, but I've discovered that I use the word "it" for things that I cannot communicate with, and for Essentially that. So like if I'm talking about a corpse of a human, I will call it an it because I can't communicate with it. I don't choose that. I just happen to notice that when I analyze
Would
it.
you call a human baby it?
A human baby, yes. Every human
You'd call
baby, I
an
call it.
right? Okay, fair
Yes.
enough.
And animals, I call it. And I just happen to notice that. I'm like, okay, interesting. I can't. But if it's something I have been in contact with and can't any further, I refer to it as he, she, whatever. So if it were my friend's dad that died and there was a corpse there, I would say, oh, he was a great man. But if I'm talking about, is it okay to eat somebody's corpse and it's a corpse I don't know, I'll say, go ahead and eat it because you're not harming anything that's live. So anyways, I use the word it. The amount of waste, no offense, but the amount of wasted time of vegans talking about the language we use calling an animal an it, I personally think it's wasteful. But it's all right. I'm glad we talked about it.
You used it just now to defend the idea of eating a corpse. I mean, this is
Yes.
kind of where language intersects with this, right?
I think language is very important.
Rushing to your defense, but then as soon as we start talking about things like it or him, you know, you would eat an it, but not a him, right? And so as soon as you start changing that pronoun, you start being okay with eating corpses, and that's precisely where veganism spends a lot of its time, because we're forced to eat 3 times a day.
So I think when it comes to offense or anything where it's just talking about like degrading an animal or a person, when it comes to words, intent is what matters to me. I think if I'm just using the word it because that's how I use it, in the same sense that whatever somebody that speaks Spanish uses for the word it, I'm just a human using a word meaning no
Totally,
offense.
I am disposed to agreeing with you to a very large extent when it comes to this, how much time we're spending on talking about the language around our movement. But as soon as you started talking about it, you snuck in this thing about eating a corpse, and it's precisely for that reason that there's so many people wasting, quote unquote, so much time on language.
Maybe, but I'm just referring to the it part, not where I'm using the it or the corpse. That was just an example.
All right, well, let's get back on track. So
fair enough.
where were we?
So I brought that up because we were talking about the Meatless Monday thing. So I wanted to make sure what the definition was, because recently I hear different ideas for why people aren't vegan. I've been told, and I've seen people told over the past 4 months since I started this channel 4 months ago, the amount of vegans that tell vegans that they aren't vegan for all kinds of different reasons. So the reason I wanted to ask what you guys view the definition as is because recently there's just been this push that if you are not a vegan activist, you are not a vegan. So do you guys feel that if Joe Bob over here decided for ethical reasons, will never eat animals or purchase anything that was tested on them or anything like that, any clothes made from them. But aside from that, the rest of my life, I am just me. I'm not going to talk to people about it. I'm not going to spread the word. Is that a vegan to you guys?
You don't have to be an activist to be a vegan, but I'm always encouraging and exploring the space on my channel about where that occurs, like where we can get more vegans to be active so that we might maybe accomplish a vegan world in our lifetimes. But veganism is the moral baseline. Any reasonable person can look at all the members of the moral community and say that this is the only option, is veganism. It's the moral baseline. It's not something, once you become an activist and do other things, that might make me, I don't know, like you more.
I personally think that it's just a nonsense, all of it, because I really do not believe that anybody who is vegan, who is morally vegan, who is vegan for ethical reasons, once they see the truth, that person, I do not think there's one vegan on this planet who would not do some sort of activism, whether it be talk to friends, suggest recipes, or do something. I don't think there's any vegan out there who will not talk about the veganism to other people. I think.
But we'll get into a conversation about what makes what is an activist, right? And if it's someone who reposts something that somebody else makes, I think that's a form of activism. So sure, I guess, like, I don't know. Do you have to be an activist to be calling yourself a vegan? I guess, I don't know. I don't know.
I think we're all activists. I think by just taking up a vegan lifestyle, as long as you're doing it for the right reasons.
Right,
which
it's a
is for the
boycott
animals,
movement at the end of the day, isn't it?
you are active. But I like I said before, I don't think anybody who sees what goes on and sees the injustice and sees the oppression will not speak up about it.
For sure. So the reason I brought that up is because so I've been told recently by somebody who's probably watching right now that if somebody pushes for an idea, if somebody is vegan and pushes for an idea that might be vegan related but isn't the vegan message, then that would make them not vegan. And so that I guess that's kind of what I was wondering. So if me, a person that does not consume animals aside from bivalves, we'll get into that, but aside from bivalves, does not purchase leather, any of that stuff, does not, I'm not in favor of any form of use of animal, like you guys know.
Unless it's a bivalve.
Unless it's a bivalve, yeah.
Well, why is hold on.
Hold on. I just want to get over this one Meatless Monday thing real quick. So if I let's assume, so I do not have any idea that we should just push Meatless Monday on its own. That it is a backup plan, but let's imagine it's not. Let's imagine that I do all those things I said. I think humans should not have any connection with animals whatsoever, and I don't. And the only thing I do tell people is you should reduce your meat consumption. Let's just say I do that for fun. Now, that might not be a vegan stance.
That's exactly, you just answered your own question. It's not a vegan stance.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So that I guess that's the thing. When you guys were complaining about it, you were saying it as if it's not acceptable to say it. Like, so if I have a person here and they're
vegan to say,
it's not, but it isn't vegan to say, but it's not anti-vegan to say.
It is, because if vegans are people who are against animal use, and you're saying, just reduce your animal use, we have other words for that, reducitarian, welfare. You have all these other ideas of that. You could kind of say, well, Meatless Monday does some good. Peter Singer says, you can kind of like talk yourself into a corner there. Fine. Or try to tell me that there's good things that come because of Meatless Mondays. Fine. Maybe I'll agree with some of them, but that doesn't mean that a vegan point of view is saying Meatless Mondays, stop eating meat once a week and we're good.
Yeah, I'm not claiming anything's a vegan point of view. When I talk to people about abortion, that's not a vegan point of view. When I talk about circumcision, not a vegan point of view. When I talk to somebody about the idea of reducing, I don't need to call that a vegan point of view.
But your name is Reasonable Vegan, and so when you hear you talk about it, you're posing yourself as a claims maker in the vegan community and the vegan movement, and you're making claims that are contradictory to the vegan movement. You don't find that be problematic?
I'm referring to certain treatments of animals as either being neutral or good.
Carson, do you understand that it's those of us? I don't know how long you guys have been vegan. I've been vegan for a while, and I am jealous of my word. I do feel like it's being appropriated by people who are making themselves out to be vegans, calling themselves reasonable vegan, and even that term saying I'm a reasonable vegan, meaning that all the other vegans aren't reasonable. But that we'll get to that, I suppose.
I can tell you why that name.
But to say that, oh, I'm just for funsies saying that Meatless Monday is great. Well, that's not you. Then you're not being a vegan claims maker, and you should stop presenting yourself as one.
Okay, so here's the thing. Okay. Well, so first of all, I've been vegan 8 years. I first went vegan about 20 years. I was vegan for like a year and a half, and I don't know how many people have gone the route I've gone where I've failed many times. But for a solid, complete being vegan, aside from recent 3 times use of bivalves, I have been vegan for 8 years. And really quick, not to get into the bivalves, but just because I see a lot of comments coming in about the bivalve thing.
Let's go down the bivalves. Let's go down the bivalves.
I want to save Meatless Monday first. We'll get to bivalves, Dan. I promise. I'm not letting that go.
Well, Meatless Monday, right? I just want to. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I need.
Yeah, you're fine.
I'm an ADHD sufferer. I struggle, and I tend to sort of do shit like this, unfortunately.
Okay, yeah.
So basically, we should never ever advocate for anything less than abolition. If something happens like a Meatless Monday or a Veganuary, fine by me. If that happens, it's not a problem. But we should never advocate for reducitarianism or anything like that. We should. It's got to be abolishment. The message has always got to be that. If anything happens previously, I mean, look at the egg industry, right? This free range egg thing now is such a. People think they're doing things for the animals by buying free range eggs. They're not, and that's what this sort of thing does. This is what, when we advocate for things less than abolishment, we give people hall passes to carry on their oppressive behavior. That's what we do. So we put veganism back years because now chickens have got an A4 sheet of paper to wander around in.
No way. No, strong
Yes,
disagree.
Wade.
No. So here's the thing. Okay, so I was going to go one route, but I'll go a different route. So for me, how I use Meatless Mondays, I was trying to defend any use of it, but I'll just do how I use it. So if I'm talking to somebody about veganism, and you guys have seen Earthling Ed, everybody do the table talks, and oftentimes it'll get through to people. Usually it's not going to get through to them right then, but anyways, they talk to them, and the person usually by the end of it, even if they agree that Ed had good arguments, they'll be like, I'm never going to go vegan. If I talk to somebody about going vegan, which I talk to many non-vegans about, and they'll agree with some things, and by the end they'll still say I'm going to eat meat or whatever. If I tell them, you know what, do Meatless Mondays or do vegan Mondays or do every breakfast vegan or whatever, because reducing is better than nothing. Because oftentimes I'll talk to people that will think veganism is the moral way and they wish they were legally obligated to be vegan, but they cannot help themselves. And so I feel like anything good is better than nothing.
But Carson, much of
Yeah.
your content is saying that we shouldn't focus on abolition. We should focus on reducing, and the focus on this reduction of suffering is precisely the problem, and why you shouldn't be calling yourself reasonable vegan, because you're not making vegan claims.
Okay, really quick, let me explain why why I chose the name Reasonable Vegan. I started this channel because of Cosmic Skeptic. When he declared that he was not vegan anymore, the amount of negativity his way, a very unreasonable negativity, just outrageous negativity that I thought made the vegan movement look bad. I was so irritated just a couple days watching how horrible this was.
Well, I got rid of my black slaves, but it wasn't suiting me, so I went and bought a load of black slaves from Africa and brought them back up because it didn't really suit me. That's basically what he did.
No.
Yeah,
It is. I mean, you don't understand that there'd be public outcry and outrage from a community that he claimed to be a part of, and
the difference is,
Carl.
the difference is, Carson, right, is when you're an influencer, when you put yourself on that public stage, you've got a responsibility, right? It's like these pop stars, these politicians, these actors, all these people who put themselves on these platforms and influence a lot of people. You've got to have some responsibility. You've got to be able to give that right message. And the minute you fail, you deserve everything you get. Everything you get if you fuck up. That's my opinion of Cosmic Skeptic.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys care if I respond to a comment real quick on this side. Hannah Moon said, would you eat a corpse of a human that did not have a brain? Most importantly, I talk about morals. I don't talk about my own personal interest. But by the way, I love the Rolling Stones, and I enjoyed the end of that conversation you guys had. But I don't think it would be immoral to do so. Would I do it if it was healthy for me? Sure. But anyways, back to me being called Reasonable Vegan. Somebody said, were you not Reasonable Vegan before that? I started the channel then. So before that, I just did other stuff on my political channel. But anyways, it irritated me. I thought it was unreasonable. So I was basically wanting to show, I imagined any non-vegan, especially the ones thinking about being vegan, watching that happen, going, no, fuck, I'm out. I'm out. And so I wanted to be a person that would essentially be somebody that could share ideas. And a lot of people that were very bothered by the stuff with Cosmic Skeptic that latched on right away when I made my channel were like, oh my gosh, those are my exact thoughts. And I was thinking about going vegan, but those people, blah, blah, blah. And I really like your ideas. And so that's kind of what I was getting at.
These people who say, I was going to go vegan, but I was put off by...
A vegan was mean to me.
I was going to stop
me.
picking fuck out of my wife, but this fucking anti-wife beating guy shouted at me in the street, so I'm carrying on beating her. It's just pathetic, you know? Okay. Why did he play the victim?
I'm excited to get into that wife beating talk because I think it's obviously clear that beatless Mondays for wives would be amazing for the wives. But first,
It
real
wouldn't be
quick to finish
amazing
up,
for the wives.
it
It is
would
not
be.
being
Maybe-
amazing for the wife.
Okay, well, if I was a wife getting beat every
Slaveless,
day,
you-
I would
I've seen you
love
say
to
this
not be
before.
beat
You've
one
said
day a
that
week.
shit before. That the idea of slaveless Tuesdays would be great for slaves. No, because they go
Yes.
back to being slaves on Wednesday.
What the fuck about it? What?
Because having a day, that's like saying being a prisoner because you get to go outside makes you less of a prisoner. No, you're still
Yes.
a prisoner.
No, yes, it fucking does.
No, it
if you're a
doesn't.
prisoner that doesn't get to see sunlight and then a law goes in place that lets you see sunlight one day a week, you're going to be excited as fuck.
That we should have left Nelson Mandela in prison and just given him more time outside.
No, I'm not saying it's the ultimate goal. I'm
You
saying
are.
good
You say,
is
"That's
better
great.
than nothing.
We can all go home.
Great
now,
does
ladies
not
and
mean
gentlemen.
ultimate goal.
We can
I
all
think
go
it's
home. We gave the
if somebody
slave
that
the day
kicks
off.
dogs all the time stops kicking dogs, I think that's great. But I don't even think we should own them. It's not the ultimate goal.
But you are
It just is
focusing
a
and
great thing.
presenting those things as positives, and that is not, again, not a place to be for a vegan who's for abolition.
That's your opinion, but a positive thing is a
No,
positive
that's what
thing.
the
So I'm
movement
announcing.
is. It's an abolition movement. You've said it yourself. And you're saying no,
No,
we should focus on
I'm saying
on
what-
these incremental changes.
I
Well,
said
you
not.
don't.
I said what it means to me. What the definition is. It has nothing to do with abolition or has to do with activism or any of that stuff. It has to do with what it is. It has to do with don't touch animals.
But
You
you're
don't
saying
touch them.
vote
I don't touch them,
Meatless
and we hope
Tuesdays.
other people don't touch them.
Carson,
Yeah.
let me calm this down a little bit. So, I've seen a few posts on Facebook on vegan groups, and
Okay.
someone posed a question. They said, "Why did you go vegan?" And people had to put their answers why they went vegan.
Mm-hmm.
And the amount of people that put on, because I wanted to lose weight, I wanted to be more healthy, right? I wanted to help the environment.
Those are great.
Now this tells me that we're diluting the message of veganism. These people had no idea what veganism was. They were under the assumption that it was simply a diet. It wasn't an animal rights thing. It wasn't anything to do with animals, about oppression, about using animals. It was all about whether they could lose weight, whether they could be more healthy, whether they could help the environment. What do you feel about that?
I think that, well, first of all, I think that's amazing. Anybody not harming animals is amazing. But yes, if there's a human, just imagine a random human that hasn't looked into the ethics of it. They haven't talked to a vegan. They have they don't have many thoughts on it. They just are aware that vegans don't eat animals. And let's imagine they're one of those wackadoodles that thinks vegans also are gluten-free. That's just a person existing in the world. And then let's say they're overweight and they watch something and the thing says that, oh, being on a vegan diet makes you healthy, and they decide to do it. And then while they're on that vegan diet, they look into things and they look into the ethics and they go, oh man, I can't believe I used to do that. And I never thought about this
How
stuff.
are they going to get there
Right.
if vegan people called reasonable vegan as presenting themselves as vegan influencers or whatever the hell we are, vegan thinkers, let's call us, then you're presenting these things like it's okay. You're misrepresenting veganism.
Almost my entire stance is from a moral perspective. So saying that any connection to me will keep somebody that started for diet reasons not understanding ethics. But anyways, hold on. I just want to point out something real quick. This human exists. They become dietary vegan, whatever they're doing. That is good for the animals. It would be great if they learn the ethics of it. But expecting a human, like thinking there's something weird about a human becoming vegan for dietary reasons. What?
I'm not
No,
trying
no,
to
no,
reduce
no, no, no,
suffering.
no,
I'm not
no,
trying to
no.
reduce suffering. I'm trying to abolish slavery. I'm
Yeah,
trying
suffering,
to liberate.
death, slavery, all of it. Yeah.
No, that's not the same thing. Saying like I'm trying to make it. I'm trying to get the animals soft. I'm trying to get the slaves softer whips. I don't care how soft the whip is, as long as there's something to do with slavery. End slavery.
Yeah. Is it good if a human stops eating
Hold on a
animals?
second. And along the way, what happens is, as abolitionists, as we've seen many times in many other abolition movements, as they demand abolition, welfare is delivered to slow down abolition and get us to shut up for a while.
I've heard you say that.
And we could say, thank you for the bigger cages. We want abolition.
Yeah, and I think you're very wrong. So
How could historically we have evidence of this. The
No.
manumission laws in New York leading up to the abolition of human slavery in America.
Yeah.
The manumission laws when it came to the abolition of slavery in the UK and Great Britain.
Okay, well, hold on. I'll tell you why you're very wrong in one sec. But first of all, there's two very different things. There's reduction and there's welfare. These are hugely different things. And I do want to point out that you said that the thing I promote on my channel, it's not just follow up with Meatless Mondays. Reduction is a follow up to talking about abolition. But I do push that I think we should have a heavy focus on welfarism. And now that's just a personal opinion. We each have to figure out what we think will be best for animals. I disagree. But
we started this conversation all agreeing on what the definition of veganism is. It's an abolition movement. It's a liberation movement. It's an abstention from any kind of use of animals. And even you went one step farther and said complete separation.
Well, I was
and
very
by the way,
specific.
I completely agree with that. I want nothing to do with animals. I want
I was
to treat
very
them as
specific.
apathetically as they treat us.
I was very specific with what it means to me for my own actions. I do not think that we humans should do this, and I hope to convince everybody of it. But in between now and then, I don't think that it's not part of this caring about animals movement to think that there is a better approach to getting to that end. I think focusing on welfare is not only a better approach for not harming animals, which I think is a huge part of the overall thing for me, but it's also the getting to the end of it. I think welfare is a very important thing.
You don't see how that's deeply speciesist.
Welfarism pushes back veganism years. It pushes back. As soon as they make an inroad, yes, it's good for the animals. Yes, in the short term, it's good for the animals. Yes, they get.
I think in the long term,
they get no, it doesn't, because it pushes past to use animals more because they think they're doing something for them because they're buying grass-fed cattle.
If they think it's doing something for them and we have a good argument for it, we should use an argument for it. Your line of thinking would be that it's practically identical to pushing for something that currently is illegal to do to animals that would be harmful, pushing to make that happen so you can have even more. No, it has to be. Hold on. I'm not going anywhere till we focus on this real quick. If you're saying that a welfarist idea, like the egg one, making people feel, okay, it's okay to do, and therefore that's why we shouldn't do the welfarist idea, you must also be saying, let's say it's illegal to have sex with sheep. You must be declaring right now that you think the best thing for the vegan movement would be to legalize it.
Name?
What?
Are you taking the mickey out of my name?
Stop it. Focus. The best thing to do would be to legalize sex with sheep and every other possible wrong thing. I don't know if you've seen my example.
Where are you coming with these? You always come up with these false dichotomies. There's no.
Nope. He's declaring it right now.
Choice.
He's saying if there is something that is legal to do that is harmful to animals, if we stop that and not overall abolition, it will make more people harm animals because they'll be thinking they're doing something okay. So you must be, unless you're not, and please declare, accepting of all of it. And if you're
I think
not,
what Dan, I don't want to speak for Dan, but I think what Dan is saying is it prolongs their plight. It makes people okay with it longer, okay with their speciesist use of animals longer, because they're saying they could pat themselves on the back and say, well, they've got bigger cages. It's free range now.
Yes. So if tomorrow they were going to decide to legalize having sex with sheep, am I allowed to say that on here?
Yeah, of course you can. Yeah,
great.
Yeah.
Okay. I recently got a warning about talking about
a
a vaccine on my video of mine. But anyways, if that, it would mean that if tomorrow they were going to legalize having sex with sheep, and let's say they do it, and let's say that there was enough people that thought they could overturn that, and that you could have some focus on overturning that sex with sheep, that you would be declaring, unless you think that one's different than the rest of the horrible things that happen to animals, you'd be declaring, if we overturn that, then we're going to make all these meat eaters feel like.
Why are you're falsely depicting the scenario?
Explain
we are
then.
not because we are not actively fighting welfare initiatives. We are not saying, bigger cages, stop bigger cages. I'm not out there protesting bigger cages.
That's my exact point.
And okay. But you'll appreciate mine.
Okay.
There are lots of people who are fighting for welfare, plenty of them. And you would know what none of them are? They're not vegans. Vegans are for the abolition of the use of animals.
We've got MBR beagles in Huntingdon where they farm puppies for experiments on.
Okay.
Right, they've got a massive camp of people out there. 50% of them are dog lovers, are pet owners,
You know,
and
Tom-
not vegans.
Tom Regan talks about this. Like you have abolitionists, reformists, and you have status quo supporters, basically.
Okay.
And so you're a reformist.
If you're right, then I feel embarrassed to call myself a vegan, but I don't think you're right.
You feel embarrassed to call yourself a vegan? Those who want to end slavery?
No.
What are you talking about?
Well, hold on. If you're accurate in what you just said, that vegans shouldn't want to and don't want to focus on welfare, there's all these other people to do it. I just need you both to agree that if it became legal to have sex with sheep,
What
that
are you talking about?
Hold
with
on.
these
Please hold on. Please hold on. Please
so
hold on.
vegans want legalization of sex with sheep. That makes no sense.
I didn't say that. Please listen. Just listen carefully, and maybe you'll understand what I'm saying. If it became legal to have sex with sheep tomorrow, are you saying that when the group of welfareists that you're talking about that are not vegan, that are going to fight, that are going to fight against the sex with sheep, are you saying that if vegans could fight for it, they probably shouldn't specifically fight for that? They should keep doing what vegans do, which is fight for total abolition and not to end the sex with sheep. You
just did it again. You said that there were two options: fight for abolition and not support the rape of sheep. That's just not the case.
Tell me the third option.
If a bunch of people want to say, no, you've made it clear, Carson. You said it 4 times. You want to talk about wasting time? You're wasting time on this.
I am not.
You are, because we do not have to decide. Because I don't have to decide between these two things. I'm for abolition.
Tell me the one you go with. Sex with sheep becomes legal tomorrow. A month from that, as
ridiculous hypotheticals. I live in this real world. I live in the real world.
Yeah, and in the real world, you're doing something.
Hold on. Where
have you seen Dominion?
It is legal right now to rape cows. It is legal right now to rape cows. I don't need your hypothetical.
Perfect. There we go. Would you fight against raping cows, or would you fight against total abolition?
I often said that total abolition begins with only one law, and that's to end animal rape, breeding, any kind of artificial insemination. That would be the beginning of the end for animal agriculture.
That covers most of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I'm for a law against breeding animals on the way to abolition.
Right.
So it sounds like, real quick, Dan, sorry, I want you to answer this too. But it sounds like that you are declaring that whether it's my hypothetical of tomorrow or a hypothetical of, for let's say, the past 20 years, that it has been legal and everybody have been having sex with sheep, that your stance would not be to pick one of these things, including the sex with sheep, to focus on total abolition. Am I correct?
That's the goal. That is the focus. Yes, abolition, liberation.
Thank you. Dan, same?
Right, no, because I don't understand it. So I'm just trying to figure it out.
Okay, in the same way that you won't fight to not have like tails cut off and all these other individual things. Also, if we add in another one, let's say that we have people start having sex with sheep and it's legal. Are you of the idea that no vegan should like have any focus on individual welfareism, like stopping the rape of sheep, and instead just always, for all your life as a vegan, focus on abolition?
What I'm saying is that our message should always be abolition. If something comes in like the fox hunting ban, which we got in, yes, I would support the fox hunting ban, which is a welfareist argument. Yes, it's stopping something. It's trying to stop a particular animal being oppressed. Okay,
that's all I'm fighting for.
Right, but no, you're not, because your message should be, we want it all stopped. We want abolition.
So what's your message when you back the whatever you just talked about? What's your message right then?
It's always all animals. This has happened. Great.
So when you back that, your message is all animals?
But I don't advocate for it. I don't advocate for.
Okay, so you don't back it then?
I do back it, but I don't advocate for it.
If there's going to be a vote, if there's going to be a citizen vote,
the dangerous thing that you do is advocate for these smaller welfare options. That's what you're advocating
That's
for.
right. And Carson,
And
you don't
you
need another
shouldn't be.
hypothetical. There are
That's
laws.
where
There was a law passed in California that I voted as a citizen law to ban factory farms in California and the import of flesh from other farms out of state, and we voted on it, and it went to the Supreme Court, and we
That's
we
great.
won.
Would you consider it anti-vegan, not vegan, anti-vegan, to have a table that has a thing saying sit down and talk, and sharing with randos on the street that might not know about this to help them vote for it too?
I'm saying that if you're a vegan influencer or calling yourself reasonable vegan, that is not a vegan message.
Okay. So when that went through, when that thing, people could vote for it, if you, or let's say I at that time, if I made a 5-minute video to share with everybody, hey, if you live in California, there's a vote and you can do it. It takes 5 seconds. You do this thing and it will go towards this law. Would that be an anti-vegan video to make? Yes or no?
It's not about anti-veganism. It's that there are welfarists who have plenty, and there are plenty of them, and there are plenty of speciesist welfarists that are just like you, who are always looking for an excuse to use an animal, and just like the fox ban guys who are they're against killing foxes, but they love eating cows. There are plenty of them, and the division of labor is important because there aren't that many people who hold the flag and say, "No, I'm vegan. I'm against all of this."
What you're saying is somewhat related, but why can you not answer the question? If I made a video, you can say I'm whatever, but let's say a vegan,
you're saying anti-vegan. No, I'm saying it's not vegan because I keep saying the same thing. You're like, well, was it anti-vegan? No, it's not vegan.
If you made a video, which I'm surprised you didn't, if you did, well, actually I'd be surprised if you did, sort of. If when that was happening, everybody in California was allowed to vote on this thing, would you think it was okay for yourself to make a 5-minute video that the entire video is just telling people this vote has to be in by this certain date. Please go do it. This will help the animals. Would you do it? Would you think it's not good to do?
I probably would say something along the lines of, this is a very small drop in the ocean on the way that maybe make people feel better. I'm not really out there pushing. I didn't push that. Wasn't pushing these things. I get ballots like everybody else. I vote like everybody else. I live in the real world. I don't live in hypotheticals. When the ballot comes to my house, I vote on it. And I don't know how
you wouldn't think it would be a good thing to share with, let's imagine that you had hundreds of thousands of subscribers.
As a person with a vegan channel, no, I don't think it'd be a good thing to share that. No.
What the fuck? Dan, do you agree?
I recently exposed a gas chamber in the UK. It was the first ever UK gas chamber footage. Okay, this isn't an ego trip. This is a point. And this footage is going into a documentary that is going to hopefully hit the UK pretty soon. Okay. And that hopefully may end gas chambers for pigs. It's doubtful, right? They may change the gas, but it's more expensive. It may raise up the price of pork. It shut the slaughterhouse down. But my goal isn't to get a better way of killing the pigs. The reason for exposing it was to show the public what is happening to these animals. One example of what is happening to these animals.
Those gas chambers were installed not only for efficiency, but because they were declared the most humane way to kill them.
Humane, best welfare, because
welfare, that's better for them.
Pigs have thick skulls, so electrical stunning doesn't always work. Bolt guns don't always work because they've got thick skulls.
So gas chambers is a welfare.
This is RSPCA.
So it would be better for the movement if they were killed in more harmful ways. Yes, I get it. I don't know.
No, not better for. That's ridiculous. Again, where do you go with this?
Did I miss it?
It would be better for the movement if there were no animals.
He's trolling, man.
Animals being used. You are missing it. You're totally misrepresenting, and that's what's sinister about the content you make is because you're misrepresenting.
Many vegans, including Dan, say that if you get welfareist ideas in there and you make it seem better, then people will feel better about consuming animals. Correct?
Correct.
That's all the fuck I just said.
No, you're saying.
Go back through this, listen to it again. I'm not going over that again.
I'll tell you. I'll repeat word for word what you just said. So we should kill them in more harmful ways, more painful ways for the benefit of veganism.
Can you do math? Are you serious?
That
Yeah,
was
can
a
you?
troll comment.
I don't think you understand what you're doing, Carson. You're misrepresenting a
Okay.
movement.
I'm sorry I'm
You're
heated.
not-
I'm usually a super nice guy. I'm sorry I'm being an asshole. I happen to be correct here, but
You're being
this
an
is
asshole
just,
to the animals.
This
you're
is just
pro.
idiotic.
You're pro gas chamber. That is idiotic. It's because
Okay.
it's better for the pigs. You're pro gas chamber.
Okay. I want to comment what some moron said here in the comments. They said, because we were talking about the idea of letting people know that this vote is possible. This thing could go through in California. It doesn't matter what it is, but let's just say it's beneficial for the animals. You voted for it, and other people could vote for it. He was saying that if we announce the vegan idea of wanting an abolition movement, that'll cover everything to da. I'm only calling him a moron because we've talked before, and he's an asshole too to me. But the problem is, if there is a vote that people don't know is an option for a vote, and I'm just out telling the world about veganism, that even though veganism, if everybody went vegan and followed what I want as veganism, that would cover it to die. Yes. But that won't actually get people to vote. So when you have various opportunities, like voting in a congressperson that's vegan or something like that, you take these individual situations and do them like you said you did. You agreed to that. But what I think would also be good when you have a good opportunity is share it with others. If I go and knock on my neighbor's door, and I could tell them for the billionth time about veganism, which I'll continue to do. But if I also right then say, hey, I know you're not a vegan, but you could vote for this thing. Can you please vote for it? Or make a video to get as many people that might see the video to go, oh, I live in California. Oh, I can vote for that. I wasn't going to vote, but I know this exists. Again, this is not a vegan thing to do.
I do a daily show. I talk about a lot of things that maybe
Yep.
don't do on. I do 2 shows a day, so I talk about a lot of shit that it might come up. And I've talked about this particular initiative. I didn't say, okay, everybody, this is the best we could do. Let's go out there and vote.
The best? That's silly,
probably,
yeah.
well, no, because
I don't do that.
no, you ingratiate yourself to carnies to try to make themselves feel better about Meatless Monday and Cage-Free Tuesdays and these welfarist ideas. This is the problem. You either are going to be a vegan flag carrier for a movement that I think is dearly important for the survival of not only all species, but for the human species in particular, that you don't seem to care about that. So why you call
No, I
yourself
do care.
reasonable? You might as well have called you Cosmic Septic Part 2. You're a utilitarian that
so here's,
just doesn't.
No, I am not a utilitarian.
You talk like one.
It might seem like that, but when it comes to legal things, it gets complicated. But we can get into utilitarianism. But I am not one. But real quick, I just want to point out that I think one thing that's important to remember, and why I think vegans shouldn't bash other vegans for the most part, is for the most part, all of us want what you said. I think you said it very well, which is and AJ over here, good buddy of mine that hates me. Don't touch the animals. Great music video. Go watch it. Don't touch the animals. The beat's in my head right now. We should not be connected to animals whatsoever. I have theories on what the best approach to get to that world would be, as do you guys. We all have different ideas. Now, I actually think that not specifically the reduction, but that too as well, but more so the welfarism. I think that would get us there quicker. You guys don't, and that's fine. But that's why I think we should all be discussing these things. But it's not that I don't care about animals because my theory might be wrong, and it's not that you don't care about animals because I really think you're likely very wrong, and it would be harmful to animals. But it's just a guess that you're wrong. So it doesn't mean that you're a bad guy for wanting to take your approach.
I'm also not starting and stopping at harm or suffering. I'm starting and stopping at liberation.
I've never stopped at that.
That's what you keep on saying it, and I think you maybe should just stop
think
calling yourself a vegan.
Okay, well,
because veganism is not about those
This
things.
is showing up on my channel. Anybody that watches me can see this. I do not think humans should have contact with animals whatsoever.
Start advocating for that.
I do, and many other things.
No, you advocate for welfare again and again.
I think
because
welfare is probably the most
you
important
think
thing we vegans can work on.
You just
The most important thing? I don't see. Tell me.
Because you think it all we should be completely separated from animals, but rather than advocate for something that you say that you believe, you're advocating for something else that you don't believe. That sets you up as a charlatan.
No.
Yeah, because
I think
you just said that you don't want animals and humans interacting whatsoever.
Correct.
And then in the same breath, You say, but I think welfare is the most important thing.
I think welfare is probably the most important focus we can do to get toward that future I want. Correct.
Welfare.
In what way? Can you explain how, Carson, please?
Yeah, there's a handful of different ways. So for one is, I think your average human out there would want most welfare ideas. If they saw a situation, they would say, would I rather eat meat from this animal that like lived on this nice area with their keeping their tails and their teeth?
Believes in angels, man. It's not something that we need to think about. Oh well, the average.
You have no idea what my argument is because you didn't listen to what I was saying.
Because we have to be agenda setters. We have to be agenda setters.
I know. Hear me out though. There are people.
Makers.
Just hear me out. There are people that eat animals that think it's wrong to harm animals, even the animals they're eating. They wouldn't want the animals they're eating to suffer. I'm guessing the majority feel this way, but if it's not majority, let's just say millions of people think it's wrong. They would think it's wrong to just go up to a random cow and kick it in the face, but they think they either need eating animals to survive, or they just don't care enough. They're willing to eat them, but they don't want them to be harmed. So in the same sense that we can go out and talk with random people about veganism, which is great, we could go out and talk to people, get petitions signed, talk at a table, get videos all over the internet, getting non-vegans to say, yes, I stand by this one. This law should go in place to help animals. And them talking about it and making it a thing that they can add to their collection of what they think is interesting to talk about, like abortion and death penalty and all these different things, them adding that to what they talk about is going to lead them to learn more things. It'll lead them to other vegans to hear good arguments. And even though they're going in thinking about welfare and still wanting to eat animals, like many people I know love eating animals but think it's wrong to harm them, as they get further and further into it, I think that will be what lead those people to becoming vegan someday.
You're trying to play chess when we're playing checkers here. You know what I mean?
You're playing checkers.
Dan went in to veganism because he found out that a plant-based diet might be better for his health. He's confronted with the ethics. It's been proven time and time again, the quicker that someone is confronted with the ethics.
I wish that was brought up earlier when we were talking about somebody going vegan for plant-based reasons and then finding out about
that happens all the time. That happens all the time, but that's not the goal. That's not the goal of veganism, to try to advertise that it's good for your health. And
let me put it this way:
that you might find Joey Carbstrong.
Sure,
along the way.
It's just an additional thing for sure.
Let me put it this way:
it's ancillary.
If somebody had spoke to me 20 years ago about the ethical side, the moral side of veganism, saying we use animals as products, we oppress animals, we use them in this way, it's not necessary. I wouldn't have gone the route I did go down. I wouldn't have gone to veganism because I thought veganism was a diet, right?
Perfect,
now,
yes.
You can flip it, yeah, and you can say, well, you wouldn't have become vegan, Dan, if you hadn't have gone on your vegan diet. Yes, I'm quite expecting you to say that. Yeah, definitely. And getting people on that road to veganism, we can do it in any way we can, but they're not going to stay there and they're not going to get it. And I wouldn't have stayed vegan if I had not learned about the ethical and moral side of veganism. I would not have stayed vegan. I would have give up.
Of course.
So you could have just started with the ethics, maybe. And I tell you what, vegans are there with the ethics of it. There's plenty of people. There's plenty of nutritionists and healthcare experts who are always talking about the benefits of a plant-based diet. We don't need to do that as vegans. That's already being done. We have to have some vegans, if you're calling yourself one, to be talking about the ethics of veganism, which is liberation, abolition.
And not only some, I think all of them should.
But you don't. You're saying
I talk about it all the time.
For slaves.
Have I not said it in this conversation? Have I not said it in this conversation?
You say it, but then in the same breath, you contradict yourself.
There's no contradiction.
There is.
No, hold on. I think humans shouldn't touch animals, okay? There's that. Is there a contradiction in me saying that I think the best thing to focus on to get there would be welfarism? There's no contradiction.
Yes, because
no, you might think. Well, hold on. You might think it's the wrong approach. Well, it wouldn't matter. I would be a welfarist that wants a future where humans don't have contact with animals. I don't know if you don't know what a contradiction is, and I don't mean that in a negative way. But what I mean is that I'm talking about my assumption of what will get us somewhere. It can't be a contradiction because It just can't be. That's
but
not
it's been
that's just
tried.
not how the
It's
word
been
works.
tried.
Yeah, 'cause it's-
I don't care if it's been tried.
very-
I could be fucking wrong. I could look at a thing and go, "Oh, okay, I'm wrong," but it doesn't make it a contradiction.
You said about Joey Carbstrong that he's the reason why people hate vegans, and that you think that his tactics are all wrong.
That's
Yes,
what I mean
that's
about
a
the dishonesty,
contradiction.
and I don't think you're doing it intentionally.
The first
I-
reaction video I ever did with one of yours, like the first video I ever watched of yours was that one.
Yeah. No, I know, and I'll explain why you're being dishonest, but probably on accident. You just said that I claim that Joey Carbstrong is the reason. In that video, I prefaced the video by saying I love Joey.
That video, Carson.
Why people hate vegans?
And then you showed a video of Joey Carbstrong.
Yeah, that's
Why
that's
people
the
hate vegans. Here's a video
That's
of
the
Joey
silliest
Carbstrong.
way to get to your statement you just had about claiming that I'm saying Joey
It's reductive,
Carbstrong is
maybe.
the reason.
I don't think it's silly. It's
very
reductive,
silly.
and you stop many times saying, "See, this is why people call vegans assholes."
Yes, what he was saying. I declared I think Joey's pretty cool. I like a lot of his stuff. I subscribe to him and watch all his videos. I really like his talks he does on college campuses where he explains veganism. I think he's really good at that. But yes, I think the way he talked to her is that type of thing is what gets people. If a lot of non-vegans that maybe would have become vegan in a near future saw that, I think it would make them think, "Ugh, I hate vegans."
It
Not
seems like-
not because Joey is what makes people hate vegans. What Joey was saying,
Right, but
and I
this
think that's an
does
important
speak to what this
difference.
does speak to your whole basis that by being nice to people who are abusers, that's how we're going to get them to stop abusing animals
and give them a whole pass.
They are
you
the
know?
only humans that fucking matter when it comes to veganism.
No, they aren't.
They are
We
the
have 20
only.
We don't need everyone. We only need enough people to
What,
carry
for
the
legal
flags
change
and
or
to
something?
keep going. Well, for gross adoption, but that's a whole, again, to discuss tactics about whether or not. But you're saying that a welfarist position is the way to get to abolition, and that's just not the case. We've seen it in other social
No.
movements. We've seen it in other.
I'm
we've
not
seen it in
declaring it
veganism
must be.
itself.
It's my assumption.
Yeah, it's your focus.
So it's an
You're a
opinion.
welfarist.
This is an opinion. We're not going to get anywhere on this because you're not going to change your opinion, Carson.
Please keep in mind, and if you guys knew me well enough, I will always change my opinion to what seems to be accurate. I change my opinion all the time on all kinds of things, and I have no interest in something that I come up with being what I believe forever. If I get shown I'm wrong somewhere, I change. I change all the time.
All right, let's get to
all the time.
oysters. Everyone wants to know about
Perfect
oysters.
example.
Go ahead. You want
I
to
ate
kill
my
some
first
animals,
bi-
but not others.
Yeah, I ate my first bivalve like 2 months ago.
Does
So
calling
yes.
it bivalves make it easier for you to kill an animal?
Does calling it? No, a word doesn't change anything. And in fact, I think that's the problem is you're using the word animal to mattering. Also, real quick, snails, not bivalves. Just as
They're mollusks, and
Mm-hmm.
they're part of the same family of species. Whatever, it doesn't really matter.
I don't know if they're considered not sentient, but anyways, they seem too ooey to me. If they brought me a certain amount of nutrients and I found out they were not sentient, then sure.
You keep saying they're not sentient, but of course there's debate surrounding that.
Mm-hmm.
Some people say they are, some people say they aren't.
Yes.
If there's a chance that they're sentient, because it is a moot point where people are at a standstill whether or not they're sentient. I think they are. You think they're not,
Mm-hmm.
but you've just happily decided for yourself that they aren't, so that you're finding excuses and reasons so that you can abuse animals. And how
Incorrect.
many other times? Of course, wait, hold on. We're going to get there because it seems like you spend a lot of your time trying to find ways and conditions and circumstances under which it would be okay to use an animal, which again is why you're not a reasonable vegan. You're just a reasonable welfarist. Your position on bivalves, your position on roadkill, your position on raping corpses, all of these things that you've said, those aren't vegan positions. You found conditions under which it's okay for you to abuse animals.
Okay, so those things are doing a handful of different things. For one, it's testing our limits on how we feel. It's not that I have zero interest in eating roadkill, but finding out why we feel how we feel, I think is very important, and figuring out to what limits. What would lead us to a thing? I did a post not too long ago saying if vegans were, or not vegans, if humans were obligate omnivores or carnivores, would you sacrifice your life or would you eat a minimal amount possible to survive, a minimum amount possible to have full health? And I think these questions are important because it helps us decide why we feel how we feel. The founders of veganism I watched this wild interview. One of the ladies that was part of the original team in 44 was saying that at that time she had no clue if it was going to be healthy or not, and she was doing it for the animals, and she thought maybe she'd die younger, and she's really excited to find out that it actually is healthier to be vegan, and so she was grateful. Now, I don't know about you guys. I would not sacrifice my life for animals. I don't think that's part of veganism. It happened to be what that person did. But luckily, the reason I haven't had animals, aside from bivalves, in the past 8 years is because I've been convinced that it's a healthy way to go. And I think we will find that out over time, and everybody will be vegan, and it'll be great. But if I had to eat animals to survive, I would. Would you guys?
Outside of survival, there are really a lot of things to be excused for the sake of survival. You aren't eating bivalves for the sake of survival.
Well, hold on. I'm getting there. I'm
Why
just
did you
curious.
eat a bivalve?
Hold on. I just want to know, would you
No, I
guys eat
want to know
animals
why
to
you
survive?
ate it. I don't care
Okay.
about all these. I don't
It's
care
all
about
right.
these.
I'll
Why
be
did
answer.
you-
Fine, Carson, you're not going to let it go. So yes, let me answer your question.
If
I would
survival
do-
justification,
I would
yes.
do a lot of shit to survive, probably. If
Cool.
I was push comes to shove, I'm guessing that a lot of things that I normally declare immoral, in order to survive, I might do. I don't know, because you know what? I don't live in a survival situation. I live in
Sure, fair.
America.
Yeah. Yeah, great. No, same here. Now, we are deciding what we're doing for various different reasons. So I guess my question to you is, do you care that some humans created the word animal and then that covers what it covers? Or
No,
sentience...
it's called simple biology, and they're an animal. Why did you eat an animal? Is the question I'm asking.
I'm okay with eating bivalves because, from my understanding, they are not sentient. I think understanding is a huge part of it. And
Well,
as
I didn't ask you that. I asked you
Okay, say it
why
again.
you ate an animal.
which part of the
After
why?
8 years of
I
being
didn't just
vegan-
answer you.
No, you didn't, because for the last 8 years, you said I've been vegan, and a few months
Correct.
ago I ate an animal. Why did you eat that animal?
Not and a few months. So I mean, because I don't consider that part of veganism. Veganism.
But why
is
did you
about
eat it? You haven't answered. Why did you feel the need to eat that animal?
I didn't feel a need.
What was the motivation? Well, why did you eat it then?
Oh, what was the motivation? Once I became aware that they weren't sentient, therefore no connection to veganism. Why did I want to eat it, like separate from veganism? Because
No, not separate from veganism.
Okay. Well, I need you to help semantics exactly. I need you to help me understand what your question is. Then I don't think it's connected
Right.
to veganism. I don't. Hold on. I am a vegan. At least I call myself a vegan because I do not want to have any connection. Essentially, what I would call negative rights to sentient beings that can have. That can sense things, they can feel things. I do not want to have any connection to them that could be harmful or against anything they would want. From my understanding, bivalves
So
do
because
not
some
have
dude
that.
told you that bivalves
Not
weren't
some dude.
sentient, you were like, ollie ollie oxen free. Looks like I'm gonna go kill an animal.
Not all y'all oxen free. I read a handful of papers and I talked to a handful of people and I got myself to the level of being convinced that this thing was this fine. But hold on. If I get convinced in any way that they're not, I wouldn't touch them.
Okay, they experience fear. We know that. They experience pain.
Do we know
and
that?
We know that. Yes, because they have this thing called clamming up, where they
Mm-hmm.
recoil in fear when they sense danger. They also feel pain, which is why oysters surround irritants with nacre, creating pearls. That's why they create the pearls, is for a comfort, because they've
Yeah.
got something in their face.
I
and they
am not an expert to break it down. If I was going to compare that second thing to anything, it might be something like that.
We have
plants-
observed behavior, and this is the reason.
Why do
I actually
the
don't actually give a shit that you
majority-
eat bivalves, and I don't really.
Okay.
I actually, but what I care about is that you spend so much of your time trying to find circumstances under which you might consume, use,
What?
or somehow abuse an animal, and
You
that
haven't
is a
answered my
problem.
question.
I would never have any interest
That's
in that.
all.
You haven't-
That's
you haven't
always what
answered
you're
my
I would
doing.
love to
question.
answer your question. I don't think I understood your question.
Why
Okay.
did you go and eat an oyster?
Okay, there's a two-part answer to that question. One, as in why did I go to eat it where I wouldn't have had it before, is because I did it when I discovered that they are not sentient.
What does that matter? What did you feel?
That's
you
why I
needed
was
to get
asking
from
my
the
initial
oyster?
question. What do you mean? Why does that matter? I
Well,
only
okay,
care
right,
about
okay,
sentience.
Stop. Okay, right. So
Should I
I've
care
been
about
eating-
something not
right,
sentient?
right. No. Let me. Okay, so I'm eating a diet at the moment. I'm having bean chili on a Monday. I'm having spaghetti bolognese on a Tuesday. Blah 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 blah. Right? Why would I suddenly, from this diet, I'm nice and healthy. I'm building muscle. I can run. I'm slim. I'm healthy. I don't get ill. Why would I suddenly go, oh, bivalves aren't sentient, I'm going to go and eat one? Why did you make that decision? That's what I want to know. Why did you suddenly go, okay, bivalves are sentient, I'm going to go and eat one?
I feel like I'm answering your question, but how about just let me fully answer it to the best I can, and then if there's something
Do you like? How about let's run it down. Do you like their taste? Do you think you're getting protein from them? What's the reason for
no.
You just for kicks?
I'll add that detail in there as well. Okay, so
for
let me
kicks
answer
or-
it,
for
and then when I'm
kicks.
done answering it, if you think that I misunderstood you, which I clearly have,
Okay.
let me know which part I misunderstood. I don't eat animals or do anything typical non-vegan because of sentience. As soon as I discovered these things are not sentient, I all of a sudden have no care if I eat them, in the same sense that I don't care if I eat potatoes. I am not the healthiest person in the world, but I try to be. So when I discovered that these things that aren't sentient are high in omega-3s, they're high in vitamin D, they're high in B12, things that we have to use supplements for the most part as vegans to use, which is totally fine.
I don't use.
Hold on. I'm going to finish answering this question.
Been vegan almost 20
I'm gonna-
years. Don't take supplements.
Okay, and that's great, except please don't share that with people, which you
Why?
just did. Anyways,
I
we'll
eat a
get over that in a
balanced
second.
diet. I take when I turned 40, I started taking a B12 once a month. But
There you
other
go,
than
yeah,
that,
that's great. Hold on. You answer your own question to yourself in a second. I'm going to answer Dan's real quick. So
no, you're saying you're eating. Oh, I got to get omega-3s. I'm going to eat some oysters.
I'm saying
Let
why
him
I
fucking
did
answer,
it.
Sky, for
I did it
fuck's
because
sake,
I am
will you
not
please?
Sky that thinks I have to do a thing at a certain time.
Just let him answer. I want to hear this.
Okay, so because I discovered they have these things, especially the 3 things that I take supplements for that I think are great. I take an algae omega-3, and I take D3 because I was low in D3. I live in Oregon, so I'm kind of far away from the sun. Anyways, them not being sentient and having these things, I think I thought, okay, I'll eat these things just for health's sake because I like the idea of being healthy. I ate clams, and this was the first time I had consumed a bivalve since being vegan. Was clams about a month ago. They're disgusting. It doesn't matter how much health there is. I will never go near them again. And then like a month later, I tried scallops. They were a lot better, and I've had scallops a few times since then. Also, fun fact, the shells that scallops come from are the same shells that Ariel makes her bra with in Little Mermaid. Okay, so that's my reason. I like the idea of the health benefits that could come from it, and they're not sentient. And if there's a reason to care about animals outside of sentience, then I would love to hear it.
Because they're ends in and of themselves and not means by which to derive anything. They are ends in and of themselves. They are animals. You said scallops. Scallops have eyeballs, which with observed behavior, we see that they have their own experiences, that they're individuals. You are constantly trying to find a way. What you've just evinced is that you are constantly tricking your mind into ways to use animals. A vegan is a person who is against the use of animals.
Here's something that I agree with you, Carson.
Okay.
Here's something I agree with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I saw roadkill and I wanted to eat that roadkill and it wasn't an animal that had been farmed, it was just a wild animal that had been killed and it was in that field, and I went and ate that animal, I would say I'm still vegan eating that animal, okay?
Great. I say so.
However, the question I would ask myself would be, if I'm living a happy, healthy life, why would I eat it?
That's a great point. Great point.
And that's what I'm asking you.
Yeah.
Why?
So are you asking me to answer it while assuming I'm living a happy, healthy life, or are you just asking me to answer it? Assuming I am?
You've been vegan for 8 years. You know
Yeah.
perfectly well where you can get your B12, your vitamin D, all your omegas. You know perfectly well you can get them from seeds, nuts.
No, I know
all these things. You know
a
perfectly
guy that I
well.
actually
so there was
enjoy-
no reason to eat that oyster.
I don't want to
There
get
was
too
no
far
reason.
into. I don't want to get too far into nutrition, but yeah, a guy named Ulf, I think, in here that I like very well said walnut have omega-3s. There's a lot of complications. I would say it's a little less than half of humans out there. Their
It's not
bodies
complicated.
can.
All you gotta
Don't
do
use
is
other
Google.
people's experiences. You're appropriating someone else's. Do you have access to walnuts, Carson? Do you have access to walnuts?
Do you want to let me talk, or do you want to talk?
Do you have access
From
to
my
walnuts?
understanding,
I told
and
you-
if
I
you have
told
a
you
study,
next time.
from my understanding, and if you have a study to disprove this, I think I might specifically be going with studies from Nutrition Facts, Michael Greger. But if you have studies that go against this, the more than half the humans, I don't even know if it's like 20%, that can, but more than half humans cannot make omega-3 out of nuts and seeds.
So their
bodies don't do it.
You're eating oysters for survival.
I'm eating oysters for survival? No.
Is that what you're saying?
Health?
You can't find a way. You can't find a way to live without using an animal.
Can't find a way. Well, hold on. For me, it's not survival; it's health. But I take omega-3s from algae, which I think everybody should do, because most people cannot convert ALA, which is what you have in nuts and seeds, to omega-3 DHA. It does not convert, and you can shake your head, but I don't get why.
Because I know vegans who are 80 years old. John Cross is 80 years old and somehow managed to never eat an oyster. And you're trying to tell me all these reasons again why eating. And for the idiots in there saying
that you shouldn't go from anecdotal.
Venus flytraps are just like oysters.
Do
Venus flytraps have ganglia?
Did you not just tell me that we shouldn't go from anecdotal stories?
I don't like going from non-real world stories, because there's plenty of real world examples of speciesism. And you are a speciesist. You're saying that some animals are okay to use and some aren't.
First of all, I'm fucking very speciesist. We all should.
There you go.
There's a burning building. There's a dog and a human. You save the human. You can say you don't because you want to be outrageous.
It depends on a lot of things, and that's usually not an option, because you could usually save both.
Anyways, I am not declaring we need
examples of humans running into buildings to save dogs.
I am not declaring that we need bivalves to be healthy. You're saying somebody's healthy without bivalves. I would assume maybe they take an omega-3 supplement from algae.
Hasn't Ronnie Lee been vegan for 50-something years? Someone in the chat's got to know. Ronnie Lee's been vegan for 50-something years. He doesn't eat bivalves.
I'm not talking about fucking bivalves. I'm talking about omega-3, DHA. I was just pointing out that one person might have a thought that nuts and seeds do shit when maybe they don't.
And I'm pointing out
our scientific studies.
And your answer is let's go kill an animal.
No, I'm just trying to make an individual point. You're just talking about a broad thing, and I'm trying to pick each element apart so we can understand it. I'm trying to point out
animals. It's 3 words. That's what veganism
what does
is.
Don't use animals or veganism have anything to do with? Can humans convert ALA to DHA?
Your channel is not called Carson Hughes. It's called Reasonable Vegan.
But we're not talking about that. We're talking about if humans can convert ALA to DHA.
Yeah,
somebody in the chat and also Dan here. What?
It's not proven, is it? This DHA, I mean...
Correct. No, the ALA to DHA, that is proven. The amount of DHA we need, not proven.
You've got to filter what the fish or clam has eaten to absorb the ALA to convert to DHA. Is that what you're saying? We've got to filter these vitamins and minerals through animals.
No. Do you know what algae is?
Yeah, we all know what all this stuff is, Carson. You're still killing animals.
What the fuck does that have to do with anything?
Because that's what veganism is. You're
it's
using
really hard
animals.
to take you serious right now.
It's hard to take you serious. You're calling yourself a vegan and you're killing
actually
animals.
Talking about the topic, and you keep going back to
because
bivalves.
This isn't a vegan topic. ALA and ADA, what all the other bullshit.
Yes.
If you could get it from a different way, then you do that. And since you can, that's what you should do. That's it.
And I think you're wrong. Here's one problem.
You like killing some animals and not others.
Do you think they are sentient?
I think that there's a very big possibility, yes.
If you knew they were not sentient, would you care?
Would I care about what? You eating them?
Would you care about them?
I mean,
outside of how you care about a tree. Yes, I heard that. Yeah, it was really funny talking about what if a kid was ripping apart a sunflower. One of you said, get the fuck out of here. And the other one said, kill him. And yes, it was very funny. Because yes, sure, kids shouldn't destroy trees for fun. But I'm just saying morally, if it was not sentient, do you want to describe to me what you care about when it comes to any animals if there was no sentience?
The research says that there's still no definitive answer as to whether clams or bivalves feel
I'll
pain
answer that
or
question.
not.
Yeah. I like that question. Is there something beyond
Why
sentience?
would you risk? Why would you risk?
Hold on. That's a separate question. I will answer why I'd risk. I want to know that if we knew they weren't sentient, which Sky's about to answer, would you care about them?
Yes. I care about all living things and their involvement in the ecosystem. I don't think everything starts and stops at sentience. Even Darwin would say that the split in the road, and it's been corroborated many times with evolutionary biologists saying that there's been a split in the road somewhere along the line of evolution where plants didn't develop a flight reflex and animals did, which is one of the reasons why.
Please let me cut you off real quick. I want to rephrase my question then, because I agree with you. Okay, answer the first question with a yes or no, and then the next one you do whatever you want. Would you consider protecting trees part of veganism?
Part of my veganism?
Yeah. Your answer is no. Okay, for the second one,
I mean, it could be that the reason why I pause is because it could be part of my veganism because trees do represent a habitat where animals live, and I don't think we should just wholesale destroy them for no reason, killing thousands and thousands, sometimes extincting species because we don't care about trees.
We eat plants because our justification is we need them to survive. Okay, It goes along with the crop deaths as well. We need to survive, so we can justify certain things. Yeah.
Okay. Well, hold on. Why eat bivalves when something popped up with a super blue? Okay. I'll answer that question in a sec too. But okay, so in general, rocks, trees, these things, we might consider that we care about them. We might consider that they can be linked to veganism, but also you can link welfareism to veganism. But veganism is an abolition movement, so it's not about saving trees. So what I would say, so you can declare all the things that you like in the world and Mother Nature and all that stuff, and that's great. I probably agree with you on most of it. But when it comes to veganism, if we could know that bivalves are not sentient, then go ahead and answer that.
Okay, right.
Why would you care?
If it was conclusive that bivalves were not sentient and could not feel pain, right, it would not be classed as animals. They would be classed as plants, like
I don't care about words. Yeah.
The same people say sea sponges and thing. So but I mean, would you care about a human being who's in a coma and has no sentience and could not feel anything? Would you care about that human being? It's like, come on.
Okay, if they're in a coma, would I care about them? Are they going to come out of the coma?
It doesn't matter, does it? Whether they come out of the coma or not. They're not sentient.
Dan did make a good point.
So your oyster,
plants if they weren't animals.
Oyster, you're eating oysters, but you don't know whether definitively they are not sentient or whether they feel pain or not. You cannot answer that definitively. You can't show the evidence that says definitively clams are not sentient and cannot feel pain. There's no evidence to say that. They suggest they may not be sentient. They suggest they may not feel pain, but they're likely.
There's
there
nothing
you go.
to
That's
detect.
enough for me. The likely bit, that's it.
That's fine, and that's enough for you, and that's fine.
And see, another thing comes of this, Carson, as well. Okay, it's my turn to talk now because you two have just gone blah 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 blah.
Yeah, you're fine.
Right. So what happens is when we use it's like the backyard egg thing as well. When we use oysters and it becomes a main staple of people's diets, then farming comes in. And then again, we're back to using animals as products. Again, it's starting all over again. We start farming them because we see profit in them. We see them as objects, as things we can use and abuse and make money off, and we're back to square one again.
I agree with what you're saying, Dan, but what you're revealing is the fundamental difference between a vegan and someone who just isn't vegan. A vegan is someone who's trying to find reasons not to eat animals, and a person and someone like Carson's trying to find reasons to exploit animals. It's just like the roadkill, it's just like the corpse. Even someone, I don't know where you're watching, Leon, if a human is no longer sentient, that body had a previous owner and that should be respected. There's something about the veil of ignorance that one might enter to the social contract. That veil of ignorance might exist on the other side of consciousness, might exist on the other side of sentience. I'm not sure, but I do know that I'm against using animals, and if it means that using oysters might get people, on the off chance that it might convince people that it's okay to use other animals, that's enough of a reason not to fuck with oysters.
No, I agree with you. I have thoughts on things that I wouldn't consider necessarily vegan or not, but I could consider them best to not do because it could lead to harmful things. For example, vegan fur. My personal opinion is that people shouldn't wear vegan fur because it could lead other people to see it and go, oh, that looks so good. I have billions of dollars. I'm going to go buy actual fur. So yes, it could lead to bad things. Same thing here. I agree that there are things that could lead to it, but I wanted to answer Dan's question. I don't really see necessarily a connection with the farming thing or whatever, because I don't care about farming potatoes. I don't care about farming things that whether they're called animals or not. I don't care if I care about sentience.
Okay, but you say sentience, but you don't care about the capacity to suffer. Clearly, oysters
No, I do care
have
about the capacity to
observed.
suffer.
Then oysters
Send it my way.
have plenty of observed behavior. Just because, and they have ganglia that supports that biologically. Octopus, for example, for a long time were not considered sentient. Lobsters, for a long time, were not considered sentient. And after further investigation, they determined that they were. And you are saying, well, will the person from the coma wake up? Well, when will you wake up and see that animals have the capacity to suffer, and therefore we don't use them?
I don't want to ever use an animal that has the capacity to suffer. If you have some information,
stop eating oysters.
I will. I'm not going to do it based on your claim. I'm going to do it based on the thing that you send me that convinces me.
God.
What you
the fact
you think I should? Well, hold on. You think that I should do it based on what you're claiming?
No.
So if I tell you
I think
oysters
it's shocking
don't,
that you said that you've done your research and you haven't read any other conflicting conflicting evidence.
It seems like the majority say they are clearly not sentient, and then there are a handful that say it is possible that they could be.
Much like the lobster 5 years ago.
Isn't that enough for you?
It happens to not be.
And you
enough
said
for me.
lightly. You said lightly. You didn't say
Lightly?
definitively. Yeah, you said likely. They likely are not sentient.
Yeah.
Likely. That's different from they are not
Like
sentient.
the sentience, the thing that I would imagine we should care about, is not detected there. If we found out that a plant was sentient, we would stop.
Yeah,
eating
but
it,
we can only compare sentience to our own experiences, can't we? We can see a dog is sentient because we can see reactions. We can say they've got a brain, they've got a nervous system, they react to stimuli, they can make decisions, right? Oysters can make decisions, they can decide to move, they can,
Okay. So
why
what?
can't you
So
use
somebody
those
says,
things?
why don't I get bivalve's
Scallops
benefit
seem
of the
damn
doubt?
near intelligent.
Not from anything I've seen, but I would love to find out, and I'd love to change my mind.
Food.
Would you say some flies, gnats, mosquitoes are sentient?
From my understanding, they are sentient. It's not
How
something
can
I would
they
have been
be?
able.
The brains are like minute. How could a fly or a mosquito be sentient? How?
I don't fucking know. If we
Yes,
were
exactly. You don't know.
wait, what? Well, hold on. One's saying something crazy. One's laughing.
You give the gnat the benefit of the
No.
doubt, but not the oyster.
Whoa,
This
whoa,
is
whoa, whoa, whoa,
speciesism,
whoa.
and you've already
This might be a
outed yourself
topic that you guys haven't thought about at all.
said you're
but no,
a
that's silly.
speciesist.
I'm not giving
You're not a
anything a
vegan.
benefit of the doubt. I am accepting of science.
Oh,
If it is, if the
Yeah, but
general
science-
consent.
Yeah, but
Jesus
science hasn't
Christ, you guys are
definitively said.
ridiculous.
you just said the jury's
Definitively.
still out on oysters.
What?
You just said that the jury's still out on oysters. That it's not
It's
definitive.
not
The jury's
definitive.
still out. No, yeah, bivalves, it is considered that they likely do not have sentience, and no sentience has been detected by scientists. With insects, I don't know each individual ones, but many, ants is one. I'm pretty sure bees, and I would guess flies. Most insects, it has been scientifically discovered that they are sentient or likely sentient. If I was around before the scientific evidence could have shown this, I might have looked at a dog and saw that it has eyes and ears, and when it gets kicked, it whimpers and goes, oh, that has similar reactions to humans, so I will call it something, and that would be what I'm calling sentience today. But if I saw insects, I might go like, oh, I don't care about it. If I see people squishing flies 100, 200 years ago, I'm not going to fight for their rights because I have no understanding of it. But as soon as science can show us different things, I am perfectly accepting of it. I have never been out far enough to see that I could prove the earth is round. I just accept it because the general consensus by scientists who have done studies and figure out what they figure out make this claim. I am very fine with accepting claims. If I didn't accept claims until I became a scientist,
Yeah, but that's
and proved it
physics.
myself,
That's physics. That can be tested, right? I mean, we can only base
sentience
sentience.
can be tested. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, and they have.
What are
oysters, and the
vegans
jury's
for?
out.
Okay, and if you're right, now I think you're just full of shit, but if you are accurate and you have information for it, I would read it and I wouldn't touch. And not that I eat bivalves much anyways. I've done it like 3 times in my life over the past like 3 months. But I would never touch them again. So just send something my way. Honestly, I will read it. I will always read any study somebody sends my way. But again, I don't think it's a huge deal. I think, but if you do, that's great. I don't think vegans are bad for not eating bivalves, and I don't think vegans are bad for eating bivalves. Many vegans seem to eat bivalves.
But do you think you should be advocating for it though, Carson?
Advocating for it, I think I should. I think I should be clear by stating my understanding when I talk about it. When I talk about it, I can tell people that it seems like the majority of scientists agree that there is no sentience detected in bivalves.
But why give out that information? Why give out that information when it's not 100%? Why even bother to give out that information? Why not just keep that to yourself? Why not?
Because I would want all information involving anything connected to veganism to exist. Information should exist. Period.
I agree. Information should exist.
Okay, so I'm not going to hide it.
But you're advocating for something that isn't proven. It's just your opinion on what you've seen.
Yeah, I'm sharing my opinion based on different things, kind of like the roadkill thing. To me and you, our opinion is that it's not non-vegan to eat roadkill. I'm sharing my opinion based off things I can explain. There are many vegans that say if you eat roadkill, you're not a vegan. And if you're even in favor of somebody eating roadkill, you're not a vegan. Everybody has these different opinions. They share their opinions. If we have evidence to back up our opinions, we can show that. And if we're just giving personal opinions on morals, we can do that.
Abolitionists don't have differing opinions when it comes to this. Abolitionists are against animal use. It is because, like yourself, you call yourself an abolitionist, but you reveal yourself not to be. Because
many
you're
vegan
okay
abolitionists
with some animals
are okay with eating bivalves.
No,
I'll make you a list. I'll make you a list.
Not, then they're not abolitionists. They're just speciesists. You call yourself a vegan and you eat animals. So I mean, there's lots of people who misrepresent themselves.
And I wouldn't.
That's no evidence whatsoever.
And here's the thing.
Got
right?
one right in here.
I wouldn't advocate for eating roadkill, right? And what I've said about roadkill is
what do you mean by advocate? Because you just in this video said it's not vegan to eat roadkill. So I don't know if you mean you won't make a 10-hour video about one topic, but you're advocating it right now.
No, what I would say was, right, morally and ethically, I can't find anything wrong with eating a dead animal that's not been oppressed, that's not been farmed, that is simply died at the side of the road, right? But the only reason that any vegan would eat a roadkill was if they were in a state of survival, if they had nothing else to eat, if it was desperation. That's why I said at the end of that, but why would you? Right? Why would you?
It depends on if they care about health. If somebody does not care about health and they just care about veganism, which is great, then they could look at it as if I consume all the calories from this animal that died from getting hit by a car, I'm not putting anything in demand, then that's going to be that many less calories on food that lead to crop deaths. More vegan.
But how many animals die in crop deaths?
How many? What are we referring to? Crop deaths in general? Like how many died today?
No, crop deaths in general. What does the data say about crop deaths?
I could find you numbers and write them down. I mean, there's a lot of various.
Because as far as I know, there isn't any numbers on that.
There's plenty of numbers.
There's a study that they did in 2011, and then the guys actually revisited this study and said, right, we may have got this wrong. These rodents and bird nests and everything else that lives in these fields, after the harvester comes along, they actually go to the edges of the field and they do not die. So they've actually revisited that. So the crop death thing is a bit of a non-thing, because there's no definitive numbers. The only definitive numbers are the billions of animals that we actually eat, because records have to be kept. You know, so this crop death thing isn't sort of, and it's not a rights violation.
I can get you precise numbers. I'm just looking up right now dead birds from crop deaths, because it's very common. There's a lot of things that people don't understand, like spraying pesticides will lead. So the insects die, which I don't really care about insects. Somebody actually put together a compilation music video of me saying I don't care about insects. But birds will eat the dead insects, and then it'll kill the birds. I mean, in the millions. I think it's like, I don't know if it's yearly or if it's just in total in the past decade, but it was like 66 million birds died specifically because they had the pesticides in them from consuming insects.
But why does that happen? The only reason that happens is that vegetable farmers and crop farmers value animals so lowly that
Correct.
the first point of contact is lethal force.
Okay, and so when we buy beef from the store, what's the point that the beef's there? The farmers don't care. Yes, if we put it in demand, we're putting it in demand. I'm not saying we should starve ourselves. Don't get me wrong.
Let's back up with the crop dust thing. One of the reasons why some of these industrial pesticides and like DDT was a big thing when I was a little kid. Joni Mitchell sang a song about it, and the reason why people were against it was because in order to have these massive farms to feed massive amounts of animals, we need to use massive amounts of chemicals to make it happen, and also in rich countries and properties and corporations that are making artificial fertilizer, because the animals that we have can't produce as much fertilizer to fertilize all the plants that we're using to feed the animals that we're killing. So one of the reasons that this pesticide thing and all these birds are being killed is because of this industrialized animal agriculture. Feeding the humans is not, we would use about 80% less pesticide, farmland, all the rest.
Let me put it another way. If it was starving human children that were invading crop fields, right? Would the farmers be using poisons, traps, or shotguns on the children?
I certainly hope not.
No, exactly. They wouldn't.
No,
because
but this doesn't prove any point.
It does prove a point, because if crop farmers valued animal lives as they do human lives, right? They would find alternatives.
Yes, and they don't.
And technology would. And so
we put it in demand, so it's still the same. It doesn't change. Even with what Sky said, it does not change. The point is, even if all these other things lead to more of it, it's worse because of and I agree with all the things you guys are saying. What I am telling you is that no matter what, depending on the type of food you consume, but for the most part, no matter what, if you buy food at the grocery store, it's going to lead to crop deaths, which is fine. Keep buying food from the grocery store. What I'm saying is, and this is just talking about one-off situation, I'm not declaring this is something that should happen for all of time or anything, but if somebody was vegan, did not care about their health, and found a dead deer, and consumed that dead deer, and therefore consumed less food at the store, they saved animal lives. End of story.
No.
What the fuck are you talking about? Explain.
No.
You can say no, but please explain.
So you're saying that, I mean, you can't guarantee, for number one, that whatever crop you sort of ate, whether you got a loaf of bread, whether that did directly lead to the death of an animal. You cannot say that. However, eating the dead animal, you can guarantee that was the death of an animal. An animal died for that meal, definitely.
For sure. We could farm without harming animals. I do it all the time. I have a pretty decent sized yard, and I've got a lot of tomatoes right now. If anybody lives near Salem, Oregon, come and share these tomatoes with me. They're sweet and amazing. But we happen to know the outcome. Not the detailed outcome. We vegans should care about it more and look into it more. It doesn't mean we should starve ourselves, but if we care about animal deaths, we should be fighting for and focusing on a vegan future with veganic farming and working towards these things and talking about it more. But again, I'm not saying it's a crazy number, but yes, every bit of food, especially that is not organic, and most vegans are anti-organic food, which is silly, and we should talk about that too. But if it is not organic, it is sprayed with pesticides, which means all those insecticides. Again, I don't care about them, but you guys might. A lot of those insects will be bees. We don't eat honey, but we're okay with killing the bees that are going near the crops. And it's not okay with it in a sense. If you could press a button and have food that wasn't from that, then we would do that, and that'd be great. But what I'm saying is, I'm not saying go out and eat a dead deer, but But if somebody finds a dead deer that isn't putting anything in demand and they consume that deer, which I've heard from hunters, because I've talked to some hunters, that like deer meat would last them like 6 months, one deer for their whole family or whatever. I don't know how accurate this is. I don't know. Anyways, but anyways, the amount of calories you would get from an entire deer compared to whatever food you would eat, you're going to save lives. You're going to save multiple lives, but it could be, if you count insects, then it's going to be in the hundreds of thousands.
This is an interesting thing, like what you just said about. So, I mean, Gary Francione has a story where he comes across a couple people who have stopped in the road because a deer had been hit by a car, and they're petting the deer and they're saying, "What should we do?" And they're worried about the deer, and the whole time they're saying, "She's going to die. What can we do for her?" And then they ask, Gary Francione stops and he says, "Yeah, I think we're going to have to call the police, and the police will terminate the life of this animal." And all of a sudden they say, "Well, that's a shame because we could eat it and we can have it for dinner, and maybe the police will let us keep it." And until they started talking about an animal as food and using the animal, they referred to the animal with a different pronoun. And I think that mind shift is important, because when you're saying, as you often do, that some animal use is okay under certain circumstances, that is not an abolitionist approach, and it is dangerous because it changes people's mindsets in their relationship to animals.
Depends on what you're trying to abolish. If I'm trying to
animal use,
dead animal use, yeah, I'm not trying to
all animals that we use eventually get killed, and we use them.
Yeah,
after
some people
that
think
too.
that if a bird's flying and a feather falls off the bird and lands on the ground, you can't have that feather. That's not my stance. That's not what I want to abolish.
Well, there is a problem. I mean that's like a little sort of grey area thing. I mean, we've got a thing where we shouldn't take shells off the beach because that causes problems in the oceans as well, you know. And it seems like nothing, just taking a shell away from the beach. What's that going to do? But we forget that there's 7.8 billion humans on this planet, and these 7.8 billion human people on this planet doing little things, it just amounts to a big mass thing, doesn't it? It causes, and this is why we've got
that doesn't belong to you. Like, I'm not picking up the feathers either. Just stop using animals. It's not that hard. It's just not that difficult. Mm-hmm. And if there's a reason, there's plenty of reasons not to pick up the feather. There's plenty of reasons that I could tie myself up at the knots with and explain why it's wrong to pick up the feather or pick up the shell from the beach. But Carson, you're busy tying yourself up into knots to figure out why we should use animals, why we should use the feather, why we should.
You are making a claim of my intention, and that is wrong.
I'm not your intention.
I'm not
what you actually
searching
do.
for that. I am willing to discuss and discussing the edges of how we treat these things. I've talked about it in many different cases, like if a chicken is out in the wild and it lays an egg and then somebody kills that chicken like on accident, like something happens, and then there's this egg and it's going to sit and rot if you consume it, whatever. It's just, I find it interesting to see why we feel how we feel. I'm not searching to eat animals.
Your conclusion is always the same, that we can find a reason to eat an animal's product or to use an animal.
My conclusion is always the same, that we don't want to put in demand. That's the biggest thing with veganism. We don't want to put in demand certain things, and we don't want to
as soon as you commodify the animal, you've done it. You've already put it in demand. You put a feather in your hair and someone sees you walking down the street and says, "I love that. Look, I can't wait to get a feather in my hair." So then everyone goes out and kills a bunch of birds to get feathers.
And that could be worth thinking about. I don't think that's connected to veganism, but that is worth thinking about. But hold on. Let me say one thing real quick.
Of course it's connected to veganism.
Hold on. I just want to say one thing real quick because I saw something in the comments here, if you guys don't mind. Debug Your Brain. I believe your name's Justin. It's really cool you're here. I don't know if you've seen my comments to your videos, but I think you are the best vegan activist out there. And I heard that you wanted to talk, so get in touch with me. But he said deer lasting one family 6 months has become a common talking point. That's pretty wild, because I just said this random thing from something that I had heard from a couple different hunters, but I didn't hear about it as a talking point. But he says it's not accurate. And again, like I said before, not that convinces me it's not, but I wasn't even thoroughly convinced that it was accurate. But I am perfectly fine with adjusting my information I have to whatever the truth is. But again, not that it matters. The 6 months doesn't necessarily affect my stance on that, but I just wanted to comment on that.
What are your thoughts on animal rights, Carson?
My thoughts on animal rights. What does that mean?
So do you think that we should extend basic rights to animals?
Gotcha.
Like the right to live free and not be molested by humans.
Yeah, I feel like I stated that kind of at the beginning, but yes. So some people think that there's a thing called natural rights. So animals, humans, you exist and you have natural rights. I don't believe in natural rights. I don't think that nature cares about us in any way. I believe that humans can form societies and create laws from our government that would afford us rights. And the reason we need to afford us rights is because clearly to make a society, you have to also sacrifice rights. There's no right or not right to kill a human in nature. So I have to sacrifice my right to do this action by living in a society that wants to protect all humans, including me. So I think that I think that humans can personally afford animals and other humans' rights, and that also governments can afford rights through law. So I think that every human should afford animals what's called negative rights. I don't think anybody should be morally obligated for positive rights, other than it's kind of complicated with mercy killings. But everything that we should do is basically leaving them alone. Kind of like Sky said earlier, you do not remove their right to exist and do what they do. You do not remove their rights by harming them, by putting them in a cage. You just don't inflict these harms to them. And that's how I feel about them. I just don't believe in natural rights. Oh, and as far as legal goes, do you want me to go over that as well?
Dan, it's your question, Dan.
Well, I don't see where legal comes into it.
Okay. Do you agree with me on that stance then?
Yeah,
Is that where you view it?
Yeah, but I don't think we're away from nature. We're separate from nature, and that's what makes humans different now. We don't live in nature. We're away from nature. What we do to animals now is unnatural, and I think that we should now live in our societies and leave animals out there in the wild, in nature.
Agreed. And I think we should do a better job of keeping them away from us. I don't know if it's the same where you live, but I'm sure it's the same in California as Oregon. But deer come into the road and get hit all the time. I think we should do a better job, unless there's a problem with it, fencing off nature, making it so, because deer can't understand that. Like, we can understand if I step into the road, I might get hit, but deer don't. And so I think we should do a better job of not letting them come into where we're at.
Yeah, but I mean, millions of humans get hit by cars and killed by cars. It's not a rights violation, is it? So
wildlife management seems to be something that has fallen to humans because we've encroached upon it so incredibly. Like in LA, they're building a wildlife crossing for lions because lions on either side of the freeway are becoming inbred and they're not being able to be viable species anymore. So they're building a bridge over the freeway so that these lions will survive. I think that's like a minimum. That's a positive rights thing. But I think that at the very least, what we're talking about with veganism is the very basic extension of human inalienable rights, which are negative rights. So I don't think that there's much disagreement
rights,
here.
Yeah, 100%.
including bivalves.
Including bivalves,
If
yes.
they're sentient.
I don't know why sentience comes in there. If they could feel pain and feel fear,
If you can feel pain and fear, that's sentient. So can we just all agree that maybe we need to brush up on what sentience means? But for the most part, anything you're going to describe on why we should care about animals, I'm hoping it's not because the word animal exists. Anything you could describe, whether it's doing it in a cautionary way, thinking that they might have sentience, the things you describe will be sentience.
They have neurons. And that's the building blocks of sentience. That's enough. If you want to say in the gray area, when push comes to shove and we're in a gray area, Carson, you choose murder.
I think you're trying. I think you think I'm trying to trick you. I'm not. What I'm saying is there is a reason we care. We vegans care about animals, and what that reason is, I think, is easy to be classified as sentience or something like it. The reason we don't care about rocks is if you separate all the differences, every element that matters, it wouldn't matter if you had 2 feet or 4 feet. The elements that matter of why you care about an animal, not a rock. I'm just saying it's fair to call that sentience. Therefore, if let's say an animal devolved to having zero sentience and you knew it and you were the scientist that could figure it out, and there was no experience, there was no feeling of anything, there's no hurt, happy, nothing, it would be removed from what we call veganism caring about. It must.
It would also. They would also, if that were the case,
call the
then
plant.
they would. Yeah, they would call.
And you said that
bivalves
earlier, and you're right,
plants.
100%. I agree with you, and that's all I'm saying.
So that's what
So-
evolutionary biologists are
so the-
for. They look
yeah,
at
and
these
so there's-
things and they figure this out. And there's observed behavior as well. Why everyone agrees, even yourself, that they're animals is because they exhibit some behaviors that seem animal-like. They're more like us than a Venus flytrap.
Yeah, nothing. Yeah.
Okay, then don't eat them. Like that's. I don't see why this has to be a sticking point. Like it just seems so
It doesn't
weird
need
to
to
me.
be a sticking point.
It seems so
I'm
weird
pointing
to
out
me
that
like,
sentience is what we care about.
It
That's
seems
all
so
I'm
weird
saying.
to me that like when I say the thing about the feather that hey someone might put it in their hat and this whole hypothetical that seems crazy, and yet you
That's not crazy. I said
constantly
that's
are
a good point.
but you're constantly making the other way. You're going the other direction every time with your arguments, saying that there's these hypotheticals under which
No.
I could assume that it'd be okay to use an animal.
I am making the moral argument that if something is sentient, that they deserve protections from violating negative rights. End of fucking story. And I think we mostly agree on that. We just disagree on how we feel about bivalves. And I'm not eating insects. And
and
so
how we feel
if
about
I
roadkill
were,
and feathers.
yes, so,
Like,
so I thought we agreed.
and
Okay,
dead,
at least
and dead
me-
women.
If you bring up a question, I'll answer it. But anyways, go on.
You said it in the comments of one of my videos that you think it's okay to have sex with a corpse morally.
I said it's not immoral, depending on how you view the word moral. But moral as in wrong. I think anything wrong comes down to if something's being harmed. So yes.
so you can rape women as long as you don't harm them. That's the Bill Cosby defense.
I don't consider. Wait. Whoa. Hold on. I was looking up a definition of something, and I'm not going to do that until I figure out what you just said.
I've got about 5 minutes more, and then I've got to go over and film. If you two guys want to carry on, that's fine by me.
Take your 5 minutes. We can cut it out at 5 minutes. I think we're landing the plane.
Yeah, there's a few other topics to talk about. Now we can do another talk in the future if you guys want to, or Sky if you do want to talk for another 15 or 20. I'm up for it. But yeah, whichever, or not talk at all. Either way is good. I could bring up another topic.
Hold on,
that I have
it's
written
not
down,
dishonest. He
but-
said harm. He did not say dead. He said when there's no harm legally. He said harm. If you're not causing
dead.
anyone harm, then it's okay to use them.
Yeah, if something is dead, there is no moral action happening at all. If something's not sentient, there's no moral action happening at all, correct?
Why do we bury the dead?
Why do we? We can choose to do all kinds of things.
Why do we make any decisions whatsoever?
I'm
Why don't we just
guessing
leave
most
them in the
people-
street when they
Now,
die?
I honestly don't know why people do. I think people should be cremated. I think it takes up way too much space, and it's
Whatever.
wasteful.
We have burial rights for other different cultures do different ways. We have burial
I
rights.
think
Why?
we should do sky burials like they do in some countries where they leave out the dead body for the birds to eat. And
There's lots of-
Yeah, that sounds great.
Lots of different
But,
rituals.
But
they
listen,
have-
I'm gonna love you and leave you. I'd just like to say, Carson, thanks for coming on and chatting to us. I disagree wholly with your view on bivalves.
Okay.
I really do think that you're in a privileged position to be able to speak to a lot of people, and I think you really should sort of readdress what you push out there to people.
I feel like I'm pretty clear when I talk about bivalves. And
I'm not saying you're
I'll
not
be more
clear, but I just don't think it's good for the movement. I've watched a lot of your videos. I've tried to understand you. I've tried to get your side of things on what you talk about, but I just can't get on board with you at all. I really do think that in this age that we're living in, with the vegan message getting diluted down to it's a diet, it's an environmental stance.
Well, I want to point
what
something
you're
out.
doing is prolonging that idea that veganism isn't what veganism is, and it's all about animal rights and stopping oppression.
Let me respond to that real quick before you hop off. We will never get away from the fact that we're all going to have slightly differing views on different things. For example, even you and Sky seem to slightly disagree on the roadkill thing. There's going to be slight differing ideas here and there. So we'll never get it perfectly of this is what we call vegan. Everything else is just side stuff. Vegans will talk about animals in various different ways. So in my mind, considering that let's set the bivalves thing aside for a second. I do not consume animals. I do not buy fur. I do not buy leather. I do not buy makeup. That stuff is tested on animals. And for the idea that you guys could come up with reasons, not you, Dan, but Sky called me not vegan, even with all that information and knowing that I do those things because of the ethics side of things. I think that's probably the biggest issue with vegans is that so many vegans will just talk about other vegans not being vegan. Now, calling me not vegan for bivalves, do that all you want. But to say aside from bivalves, he's a vegan that I just disagree with. If you can't make that statement, then I think that's probably I think that's the issue there is anybody that is fighting for ending the use of animals seems pretty fucking vegan to me.
So eating bivalves is not vegan at all.
That's great.
That's it, full stop. That I have got no wiggle room on that whatsoever.
And then aside from that, would you consider...
Aside from that, I think your welfareist views are dangerous for the movement, very dangerous for the movement.
But does that make me not vegan?
You said you were a speciesist. That makes you not vegan.
Everybody's speciesist. That's
I will say you're not vegan because you eat bivalves, and that's it. You eat animals. That's all there is. You eat animals, so therefore you're not vegan. But that aside, I think that anybody who takes the stance of not using animals is vegan. I don't think we should be gatekeeping too much on what's vegan and what's not. But I do believe that people who are in a privileged position of talking on platforms to people should have a sense of responsibility about what information they put out there.
Yeah.
And putting your view on this half and half, are bivalves sentient, do they feel pain or not, is a dangerous thing to do. Yeah. I think it's giving people a hall pass.
I thank you for sharing that, and I will think that over.
And welfareism too. I think welfareism delays the vegan movement. It delays the freeing animals. It delays it. It delays the whole movement by every welfare thing that comes into play, like the free range eggs, like the giving cattle more room to letting them graze for an extra couple of hours a day or whatever. It's just pushing it back and giving people a hall pass to say, listen, I'm having grass-fed beef. I'm having free range eggs.
Mm-hmm. I disagree, but yeah, maybe we can talk about that in the future. And but I want to check real quick on this speciesist thing. Anybody in the chat, if they could just share, if they were in a burning building and there was a human, and let's call it a vegan human, just to make this easier, as a vegan human, they're like 25, just perfectly normal, whatever. It doesn't have to be.
You're not describing speciesism. You're describing triage. You're describing triage in an emergency situation. That's an entirely different thing. Doctors have to make the decision between people they can save and people they can't. That's not the same thing. You're not describing speciesism.
How?
You're saying that in a burning building in an emergency situation, extemporaneously, I might
burn possible, but they can't get out without your help, and you can only get one out. And the door is going to lock it, and you can't get back in. This is what I
mean. You're talking about the random hypotheticals.
Yes, I'm creating a hypothetical to challenge you, and you refuse to answer it.
Because it's a ridiculous idea.
There's no
you would have to make decisions based on things that have nothing to do with speciesism. I'm not saving one over the other because of the species that they belong to. I'm saving one or the other because of other considerations. That has nothing to do with veganism or speciesism. You could say that we have.
Let's hear it. I'm ready.
Okay.
And I have it. Who cares if it's wild? The burning building's happening. It's burning as slow as fuck. Nobody's going to die for like 10 years. Slowest burn possible. But you can enter. You can take one out. And as soon as you're out, the whole shit burns down.
What does that say, though? That only tells you that you value humans over animals to a certain degree.
Then if that's not what speciesist means, I don't understand what on earth you're talking about, which is fine, and it would be a semantics issue.
Well, speciesism is something like we've got laws against hurting dogs and cats in this country. But we can put a pig in a gas chamber and then stab them in the throat. We can electrocute chickens and put them in electrified water. But we can't. We do that to a dog or cat. That is speciesism.
Yeah. Valuing a species over another species, correct?
No, affording rights to one
No, that's
species over
completely
another.
different. That's completely different.
Okay, then anyways, it's something.
That's not speciesism.
Then
I
it's
use some
something-
animals, but not others. I afford rights to some animals, but not others. I acknowledge rights in some animals, but not others. That's speciesism.
Yeah. Okay. I will look into speciesism further, and you can send me a thing on it, and I'll just maybe we're just viewing it differently. So there's no point to argue if we're not going off of the same.
Anyway,
definition, so.
save the animals, save the planet, save yourself. Don't
Take
be a
care, Dan.
welfareist. Don't eat bivalves, right? Go vegan. We want to end it. Abolish all animal use.
And with
I agree
that,
with most of
we'll say goodbye, I guess. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Carson. I
Do
appreciate.
you want
your
to talk
time.
about Cliff real quick, or should we call it?
Cliff Grant? Sure. Let's
That
talk
was my
about Cliff
next.
Grant.
That was my next note here because that's where I think most of the dishonesty came from.
Okay, let's talk about Cliff Grant.
Okay, so Cliff Grant gave an example of pointing out to if me and him went to Nazi Germany, and he was pointing out that what he thinks my stance is and what his stance is that his would be going to Hitler and saying,
Oh, the
Abolish-
Nazi death camp.
yeah, he would be saying abolish it all, and that he's claiming my stance is that I go to Hitler and say give him better beds, and that's what he's telling me in a comment that I'm responding to. And then what I tell him is that no, that's not what's happening. What's happening here is he's going to say abolish it. I'm going to say abolish it. And if Hitler goes, nah, I'm not going to abolish it, then if he repeats abolish it and it keeps not working, and I repeat it and it keeps not working, that I say, hey, can you at least give them better beds? So that's what I said in my video, and I think that's clear that that's a good thing. And then you were attacking that, but then you were saying, of course, everyone would want that. So who are you talking about? And that, so anyways, if you could clarify more, I don't know exactly. I was talking to Cliff and anybody that would have Cliff's stance.
Well, I think that we kind of covered this in the first 10 minutes of this video, which is you seem to say, maybe not in the Cliff Grant situation, but you've said on many occasions that should be the focus of veganism, is these welfare incremental gains, and celebrate those victories, because we're trying to make those are our
society, yeah.
claims, that we need more comfortable beds, softer whips for the slaves, whatever it may be. So I fundamentally disagree with that. I don't think that should ever be the goal or the focus. The focus should be abolition. If we get softer beds, which is likely to happen, that's usually what happens. You say we want to have equal rights for African Americans in America, and we're still fighting for that. We want equal rights for African Americans. Okay, well, we freed them from being slaves.
Who does
Okay,
it?
thank you. Or first they said, okay, we won't have them be born as slaves anymore. Okay, thank you. We want them
That's
equality. Okay, well, now we'll say after a certain number of years, we have to teach them how to read. Okay, thank you. We want equality. And it keeps going like that, where they keep giving us welfare measures
Who
on
does
the
it?
way to abolition.
Okay,
We don't
so
demand welfare.
So do you think there's a group of vegans or abolitionists or whatever different situation that demand abolition, and then there's groups that are the type that are going to focus on the welfare aspects of it, and then they convince politicians? Or is it just that there's us abolitionists and then politicians, and then when we make our demands, the politicians listen to part of us? Which one are you claiming? Who's the one that's hearing abolition and giving us some?
As claims makers in an abolition movement, we need to demand abolition. There are plenty of people who are demanding welfare who have no interest in abolition, because they want to uphold the status quo. They want to simply reform what's going on. So maybe they want to challenge the status quo to just a little bit. They want to reform what's happening so that they can happily continue to eat chickens. You find this all the time in outreach, where people say, I'm against factory farming. Yeah, well, no shit. Everyone's against factory farming, but 99% of farming is factory farming. So what do you suggest? Oh, well, let's do bigger cages. Let's do this. Because we don't want to upset the status quo too much. I'm saying I want a entire abolition, total liberation. I'm not that interested in bigger cages or whatever, because it prolongs the status quo.
Who does it?
Who does what?
So you're saying us vegans should go for abolition, and then throughout all of history, when we go for abolition, they give us welfare. I know clearly
The
that people
oppressors.
giving Okay, so what you're saying is there's a group of people that do it, like as in all the non-vegans that when they talk about all the policies they want, and then that encourages the politicians to give us things, that they are the ones doing it.
Well, I mean, you have supply and demand things. You have all sorts of demand side economics, supply side economics. You have lots of arguments about how those things happen because of, I mean, you can look at someone saying that single issue campaigns will drive the suppliers to change. Some people think that vegan education will shrink the demand for such things, and therefore will.
I'm just trying to see if with abolition, for ending slavery, for giving women rights, for giving animals rights, are you claiming that if the abolitionists cry for abolition, that the politicians will give us some? Or are you saying that there is a middle group of welfarists and
reformists? Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, Tom Regan talks about this a lot, where he says, like, we have reformists, we have abolitionists, and we have people who are cool with the status quo. They kind of go either way.
So now my question is, if those people didn't exist, would it happen?
Which, if activists didn't exist, nothing would happen. I guess
Obviously.
is what you're kind of getting towards.
No. I'm saying we have there's welfarist activists, there's vegan activists, there's all these different kind of things. What I'm saying is, if we have the abolitionists that are calling for a certain thing, and then we have people that go like, oh, we want better conditions for slaves, we want women to get this but not this, and they have these different things, and then enough of them make the policies change. I'm saying if they didn't exist, if everybody that you were saying, like, oh, if you want to be called a vegan, you got to be this, you fight for abolition only, and then these other people do it, are you admitting that we need those people?
No, I'm not admitting that we need those
then
people, because I think
exist?
If they didn't exist, we would demand. If let's say in your scenario, all those welfarists become abolitionists overnight for some magical, wave of a magic wand, then you have a large group of people now demanding abolition. So that's a much greater pressure on total liberation. We'll get there much faster. The problem, which is what Dan was alluding to, was that when we have a bunch of people saying they want they want to keep more or less the status quo of oppression, but they want to make it better for those who are oppressed. They want to make oppression more comfortable for everybody. That just prolongs the institutions, these horrible institutions that abolitionists are fighting against.
Yeah, maybe it does prolong it. It seems like it's a must. It seems like there's no way around it. In every case of everything, if there's a huge issue, then it gets fixed in baby steps. Now, that being said, you could still say that the abolitionists should call for abolition, but everything gets fixed in baby steps.
Baby steps are for babies, and I'm not advocating for baby steps. I think
let's not waste time saying one-liners.
The situation is dire. We need more abolitionists.
I'm not saying you're advocating for it. I'm saying you advocate for abolition. What I'm saying is, will there ever be something that gets fixed just immediately abolition? It's going to happen in baby steps, right? I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying it does,
not necessarily. Right? We've had smaller movements, the free speech movement. We've had lots of movements that have happened all at once. We've had watershed moments and sea changes throughout history because of activist
So you
groups
recently were talking about the civil rights. Right? You recently were talking about that and how there's still things to fix, right? There have been many laws put in place.
Equality. Civil rights was a big step towards that, but civil rights happened all at once. Civil rights happened because activists kept going and they demanded civil rights, and they got civil rights. But what some of us want is total equality. Most people during civil rights did not want African American equality. They enjoyed where the oppressors stood and where the oppressed stood, and that's where they liked it.
I'm not talking about anything to do with that. I'm saying when women couldn't own houses and they had no legal right to their children and they couldn't vote. When these things happen, each of these things happen because they just happen over time. It's not just like somebody wakes up and goes, it is now, the law is, all these things are in place. It's like slavery, same thing. You have all these different things that go into effect. Different states will do different things and they'll make certain laws. And over time, slowly things get, hopefully,
slavery is actually a good example. It didn't get slowly better and better. People tried to pass manumission laws and various other things and try to bring out this compromise where a slave state would come in and a free state would come in to not upset the balance in the Senate. We had all sorts of things that were going on. We had a Back to Africa. James Monroe started the Back to Africa thing where he started a colony out there for in was Liberia in order to free slaves because he didn't think that blacks and whites could live together if they were free. But these were all failed attempts. These were all failed steps. And until
You're
we
saying
fought
there was
a
no
major
legislation.
there were legislation. I said
no
manumission laws like in New York.
But you're saying
laws.
there's no good legislation that was positive for
No, manumission was an utter failure because the way the laws legislatively allowed slave owners to do was pretend like they were teaching their slaves how to read. But if they found a slave on the road that had no master, they could pick him up and get paid by the government to teach him how to read. So we had all these different when you try to pass laws towards welfare, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. There's a lot of failure, but we fought a war to free the slaves.
Correct.
And it all happened all at once. It didn't happen.
The war part
baby
did,
steps.
correct. Everything happens in baby steps. I don't want to debate with you the exact details of
some
slavery.
things, some don't. But slavery's a really good
Practically
one where
everything.
people tried the baby step thing. It didn't work, and we had to fight a war over it.
Correct. To end it, the war had to happen, because of separate states and states wanting their rights and all that business.
That wasn't a baby step. 650,000 Americans lost
There
their
were
lives
many.
in those 4 years.
There were many baby steps for the country and for the individual states.
failures, trips
Strongly
along the way.
Disagree.
Trips along the way.
If you're claiming that every state that ended slavery, they were in on some kind of wanting the slavery to exist, then that's just a strange thought and it's inaccurate. And if you don't, then those baby steps would not be not considered
Well,
good.
what baby step do you think was so good about the march towards the end of slavery? This baby step situation that we took towards the ending of slavery.
There's a handful of different ones. I believe was it Jefferson put in place in like 1804, outlawing the trade slave completely. You couldn't bring any slaves in. So then there would still be the issue of people could
Breeding
bring
operations
slaves.
sprung up.
Yeah, which is bad, but it's a positive.
That was a
thing.
step in the right direction. That because we
very
stopped
much.
importing slaves, maybe the slaves back in Africa
breeding
were great.
we were breeding and importing, and then it became where you couldn't do one of those. Every bit of good is good. Yes,
It's still allowing people to be born as slaves. You're defending the institution of slavery.
I'm defending the
You're saying-
institution of
Because
slavery.
yes, because anything other than total abolition of slavery is unacceptable. Everything less than that. And you say, well, what about more comfortable beds? Great, give them more comfortable beds.
So if I'm standing here with somebody that's about to stab 10 dogs, and they're all like, I'm going to stab 10 dogs. If I tell them, if you only stab 5, that'll be better than all 10, make those other ones not be stabbed, you'd say, no, abolition for all or nothing. And then because of you, 5 more get stabbed. There's no way you think that. You might argue for it, but you don't think that.
again, these false choices, I'd say, if you stab
not
one
a
of those
false
dogs,
choice.
I'm going to stab you. That should be the answer. If you
What
hurt,
if you
if you
can't?
harm
What if they're
one
behind a
hair on
glass
that
wall?
dog's head, I'm going to harm you. That would be a better response.
And if you can't,
why
you
can't
want to
I?
make, because you want to make the situation perfect. And yes, I'm making it perfectly hard
You
to
want to
answer
turn
for
reality
sure.
into the trolley experiment, and it doesn't work like that.
It does, because it's a
You're a
question
utilitarian.
and you can answer it honestly.
You could
I
say
am not
you're
a utilitarian.
You are. You construct hypotheticals in order to come up with ways in which you can use animals.
If there was
And
a
I'm
train,
saying-
if there was, you brought up trolley, got the trolley track. It's going towards a group of 5 cows, and over on one other track, there's 1 cow, and I can pull a lever to make it get the 1 cow. I do not. I let it kill the 5.
Yeah, except
I
in
am not a
veganism,
utilitarian.
in veganism, you can. There's no track. There's no cows. You cannot harm anybody. You can make a damn good attempt at,
I'm pointing out that
at
I'm not a
pressing the brakes on it.
utilitarian.
You're not a. You are a
I believe in
utilitarian
rights.
because
I
you're
believe
trying
in-
to talk about the greater good every single time.
Then
What is
maybe-
the most amount of good for the people involved in that situation? And
No,
it's not
I'm
necessarily
talking
the
about
case.
individual rights. If I convince somebody that's going to stab 5 or 10 dogs to only stab 5, it's me doing an action that will lead to 5 dogs not having their right to not be stabbed. It's not a utilitarian thing. There's no utilitarian to it.
It's
I
not
mean, there happens to be a lot of crossover, but it's not utilitarian.
great. Okay, so you're cool with Cliff Gates and what's his name?
Grant.
Cliff Grant. Great. All right, cool. Is everyone cool with this? it's time to go, I think.
Yeah, that's good.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Go vegan.
It's so hard to not abuse animals.
Carnies can fuck themselves. Go fuck themselves.
This is a shot of all veganism. This is a shot of all veganism. This is a shot of all veganism.
For anyone still watching, I hope that you will join me at my 5 o'clock show. I do a 5 p.m. show every night. The amazing Kirsten Marilyn, a New York activist, will be joining me tonight at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Until then, illegitimate non-carborundum. Don't let the bastards grind you.